Chapter 734. Recently, a storm was brewing in the Jianghu. The righteous sects and the evil sects were in a constant state of chaos. However, the news of Chu Xiu killing Fang Jinwu was like a bomb. Everyone was so shocked that they did not know what to say. Fang Jinwu was an expert in the true fire spirit refinement state, an existence that stood at the peak of the Jianghu. However, he died in the hands of a junior like Chu Xiu. It should be known that the friction between the righteous sects and the evil sects had intensified. Both sides were engaged in a chaotic battle. More than one martial Dao master had fallen, but it was not to the point where a true fire spirit refinement state expert was injured. Now, Chu Xiu had killed an expert in the true fire spirit refinement state before the moon-worshipping church. Furthermore, Fang Jinwu was not a nameless person. He was a well-known figure in the Jianghu of the northern Yan kingdom. In the past, he had also traversed the Jianghu. Even in West Chu and Eastern Qi, he had a certain reputation. At the very least, the elders in these two places all remembered him. In the end, he had died at the hands of a junior like Chu Xiu. Of course, there were also many people who scolded Chu Xiu for being despicable and shameless. He had used a curse to weaken Fang Jinwu's strength. Otherwise, he would have been the one dead. However, in the Jianghu, the winner took all. Chu Xiu was alive and Fang Jinwu was dead. It was as simple as that. There was no point in using the curse. In other words, if Chu Xiu had been in someone else's place, they would not have been able to withstand a single blow from Fang Jinwu, who had been poisoned by the broken intestine curse. On the second day after Chu Xiu killed Fang Jinwu, the wind-sweeping tower's ranking list was updated. Chu Xiu had jumped more than 10 places, from the 35th place to the 24th place. He was ranked behind Yan Ji of the Wind Cloud Sword Mound. Back then, little celestial master Zhang Qingzhen had entered the ranking list before Chu Xiu. However, now, Chu Xiu had gone further than Zhang Qingzhen. Everyone could foresee that the gap would gradually widen. It was not that Chu Xiu had to be stronger than Zhang Qingzhen. Now that Dragon Tiger Mountain was sealed, Zhang Qingzhen could only cultivate on the mountain, while Chu Xiu could dominate the Jianghu. At this time, Chu Xiu was recovering in the martial suppression hall. After fighting with the true fire spirit refinement state expert, Chu Xiu had not only gained a lot of experience, but he had also been injured. While clashing with Fang Jinwu's inextinguishable golden body, many of Chu Xiu's bones had been shattered, and his internal organs had been injured. Finally, when he used the triple destruction city arrow, he used up all of his strength, and then paid the price of a mouthful of essence blood. He suffered a backlash and was in a miserable state. He basically wouldn't be able to recover without a month's rest. However, he wasn't worried because even though killing Fang Jinwu would cause a huge commotion, the impact it would cause would be minimal because no one would stand up for him. This was also the helplessness of the rogue cultivators. Although Fang Jinwu did not want to offend anyone, no one wanted to stand up for him. Chen Jinting had already been crippled by Ren Qinli. Chu Xiu didn't know if he was dead or not, and he didn't specially look for him. However, now that he was accused of killing his teacher, even if Chen Jinting didn't die, he would have to hide his identity for the rest of his life. Ren Qinli was experienced, but in fact, he was slippery. Chu Xiu had killed his master. Ren Qinli wanted to take revenge, but could he do so? In the past, when he was in the Northern Yan Imperial Court, his backer was not the big shots in the Northern Yan Imperial Court, but his master. Now that Fang Jinwu was dead, even his words in the Northern Yan Imperial Court were not as tough as before. In other words, his current status was not as important as Chu Xiu's. Therefore, it didn't matter if Ren Qinli was a coward or if he knew how to adapt to circumstances. In any case, when he wasn't absolutely confident, not to mention finding trouble with Chu Xiu, he would even try his best to avoid being seen by Chu Xiu. As for the Jianghu, no one would seek revenge for Fang Jinwu. Fang Jinwu's relationship with the Huangfu clan's patriarch was not bad, but it was only good. The Huangfu clan's patriarch would not seek trouble with Chu Xiu because of him. It was the same for the Great Guangming Temple. Chu Xiu had an agreement with Shudu that he would not initiate trouble. To be precise, it was Chen Jinting who first spoke nonsense in Yanjing City, which led to this series of bloody cases. Now that he was dead, the great Guangming Temple's attention was not on the northern Yan, so they would not care about it. Therefore, Chu Xiu could recuperate in peace and did not need to worry about other troublesome matters. After recuperating for half a month, Chu Xiu felt that his vitality had recovered a little. Only then did he take out the great soul-searching palm of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth to read it carefully. When he first obtained this technique, Chu Xiu did not even have time to read it carefully before he set out to kill Fang Jinwu. Now that he held the great soul-searching palm in his hand, even with Chu Xiu's composure, he could not help but feel a little excited. A single great soul-searching palm would naturally not make Chu Xiu so excited, but no one had managed to combine the 7 parts of the Great Compassion poem since ancient times. Therefore, Chu Xiu wanted to see what changes would happen after collecting all 7 parts of the Great Compassion poem. The great soul-searching palm of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth was one of the stronger techniques in the Great Compassion poem, but it was not the strongest. It could only be said to be the evilest. The great soul-searching palm was between a primordial spirit's secret technique and a normal martial technique. When it was used, it would extract the soul and pull the opponent's spirit and primordial spirit. Weaker warriors would have their primordial spirit pulled out by the great soul-searching palm and die on the spot. It could be said to be unstoppable. Of course, this was only used against weaker warriors. Against stronger warriors, it could only serve as a distraction and would not be able to hurt them. For the current Chu Xiu, it was slightly useless. Perhaps it could be said that it was more useful in group battles. In a one-on-one fight, Chu Xiu felt that his soul-extinguishing arrow was more convenient. After completely imprinting the great soul-searching palm in his heart, Chu Xiu continued to evolve the remaining 6 parts of the Great Compassion poem in his mind. The 7 parts of the Great Compassion poem fused completely in Chu Xiu's mind. At that moment, a strange rhythm reverberated in Chu Xiu's mind. It was like an incantation, like the murmurs of an ancient demon god. Chu Xiu's vision had already sunk into darkness. What he did not know was that his body was involuntarily murmuring those words that sounded like an incantation. The next moment, a boundless blood rain fell from the darkness. Endless ghostly wails came from the sky. The wails made one's heart palpitate, as though they were about to explode. Pfft! Chu Xiu spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The blood rain stopped, the ghostly wails dissipated, and light shone again. This feeling was very familiar to Chu Xiu because he had experienced it before. This was the backlash of a cultivation technique. The door to the seclusion chamber was pushed open. Mei Qinglian poked her head in. When she saw Chu Xiu in this state, she asked curiously, "What are you doing here? You're a weirdo to the point of vomiting blood during seclusion." Just now, Chu Xiu did not know that when he involuntarily murmured that spell, everyone in the entire Jianghu hall felt their hearts tighten. It was as though some evil and terrifying existence had descended. The feeling was very creepy. Mei Qinglian also felt the throbbing, so she came over to take a look. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "It's okay. It's just a backlash of a cultivation technique. I'll be fine after resting for a few more days." She glanced curiously at Chu Xiu. After hearing what he said, Mei Qinglian turned and left. Chu Xiu let out a sigh of relief. Although the expression on his face did not change, he was very satisfied in his heart. What did the backlash of a cultivation technique mean? It meant that the power of this cultivation technique was too strong. It was so strong that he could not control it in his current state. The power of the 7 parts of the Great Compassion poem combined into one was far beyond Chu Xiu's imagination. This cultivation technique was indeed comparable to those legendary peerless and supreme cultivation techniques. When the Great Compassion poem of heaven and earth intersecting in yin and yang was collected, the martial art was called the Great Compassion mantra of heaven and earth intersecting in demon weeping heaven. Among the 7 parts of the Great Compassion poem, there was no mention of this name. However, for some reason, when Chu Xiu completed the 7 parts of the Great Compassion poem, this name automatically appeared in Chu Xiu's mind, as if it was called this name. However, the power of this cultivation technique was too strong. It was so strong that Chu Xiu could not fully use it in his current state. After experiencing the backlash of the cultivation technique, Chu Xiu's own injury was very tragic. Therefore, it took Chu Xiu a few more days to recover from the injury that would normally take more than a month. After more than a month, Chu Xiu walked out of the seclusion chamber. Although it was dangerous to fight with a true fire spirit refinement realm expert, the rewards were also quite great. At Chu Xiu's level, it was possible to improve his strength through hard work, but it was far less effective than improving his strength through life and death battles. Moreover, the strength obtained through life and death battles was the most stable. There was no such thing as superficial strength. However, at the level of a martial Dao master, it was enough to establish a sect and guard a region. They were all big shots. Who wouldn't want to enjoy themselves? Why would they fight to the death with others? Chu Xiu called Mei Qinglian over and asked, "Did Ren Xinli make any movements during this period?" Mei Qinglian replied, "This fellow is very well behaved. He hid in the Northern Guard Army's barracks and refused to come out." "Are you going to kill him too?" "I was just asking casually." "Of course not." Chu Xiu shook his head. After all, Ren Xinli was still the great general of the 5 armies. If Chu Xiu killed him, Xiang Long wouldn't sit idly by. Of course, the premise was that Ren Xinli was well behaved and didn't come looking for trouble. Otherwise, Chu Xiu would rather fall out with the Northern Yen court and find a way to kill him. "Oh yes, Daoist Wuyang came over and left with some elixirs and other things," Mei Qinglian suddenly said. "That old thing is afraid." Chu Xiu sneered. Daoist Wuyang was previously unconvinced by Chu Xiu and even wanted to fight for the authority of the Jinwu Hall. However, after the news of Chu Xiu killing Fang Jinwu spread, Daoist Wuyang was indeed a little afraid. Although he didn't admit defeat directly, he indirectly expressed his attitude. He didn't expect Chu Xiu to be so ferocious that even a true fire spirit refinement realm expert died in his hands. Of course, Daoist Wuyang was more afraid of Chu Xiu's ruthless methods. He didn't care if Chu Xiu would be crazy enough to use these methods on him after he angered Chu Xiu. Chapter 735. Since Chu Xiu had just killed Fang Jinwu, an expert in the true fire refinement realm, his reputation was now at its peak in Northern Yen. For the time being, there was almost no one looking for trouble. Therefore, after giving some instructions, Chu Xiu prepared to go to Eastern Qi. His sky demon dance had cracks when he fought with Fang Jinwu. If he used it again, the cracks would get bigger and bigger, and eventually, the sky demon dance would be scrapped. This saber had been with Chu Xiu for a long time. Even ordinary god weapons did not have the attributes that the sky demon dance had with Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu could not bear to let it be scrapped like this. Therefore, Chu Xiu prepared to go to Eastern Qi and ask the blacksmith master, Mo Yezi, for help in repairing the sky demon dance. The sky demon dance was originally created by Mo Yezi. Chu Xiu had only added a few ingredients to it. In the current Jianghu, the only person who could restore the sky demon dance was probably Mo Yezi. After giving instructions to the others, Chu Xiu immediately set off for Eastern Qi. Outside the Ji State Prefecture of Changlin County, Chu Xiu felt a little emotional when he came here again. The Ji State Prefecture was the first prefecture he had visited after coming to Eastern Qi. It was also here that he had obtained the demonic dance and was also involved in the God Armament Conference, as well as the Prince of Peace, Jiang Wenyuan, and a series of other matters. Now that a few years had passed, the Ji State Prefecture was not as prosperous as it used to be. When Jiang Wenyuan was still around, the Ji Province Prefecture was his fief. His reputation as the King of Peace and Joy was here, and Jiang Wenyuan had also sponsored many rogue cultivators in the Jianghu. Therefore, there were many martial artists who came to the Ji Province Prefecture to make a living. However, with the death of Jiang Wenyuan and the destruction of Prince Annal's residence, the Ji State Prefecture was no longer what it used to be. Chu Xiu did not stay long in the Ji State Prefecture. Instead, he went directly to the Mirror Lake Villa outside the Ji State Prefecture. There were many warriors outside the Mirror Lake Villa. Most of them came to ask Mo Yezi or the Mo family for help in forging weapons. However, it was extremely difficult to ask Mo Yezi to forge a weapon for him. Not only did one have to take out materials that could move Mo Yezi, but one also had to meet Mo Yezi's requirements. Therefore, most of the people in the pugilistic world did not have extravagant hopes of getting Master Mo Yezi's help. Even if they could get a disciple of the Mo clan to forge a few weapons for them, it would be fine. However, some of the Mo clan's famous master refiners were not easy to invite. Therefore, these people were trying to build relationships and put in good words in order to obtain a weapon forged by a Mo clan disciple. At this time, some people saw that Chu Xiu just went to the Mirror Lake Manor in a daze. He didn't even send any visiting cards or gifts. A group of people couldn't help but snicker secretly. Where did this idiot come from? Didn't he ask about the rules? Two disciples of the Mirror Lake Manor stood in front of Chu Xiu and politely asked, "May I ask why young master has come to our Mirror Lake Manor?" "I'm Chu Xiu. I want to see Grandmaster Mo Yezi." Most people who answered this kind of question would only say, "Which sect do I belong to, or what's my name?" However, Chu Xiu's answer was very arrogant. He directly said that he was Chu Xiu, as if everyone must know him. Moreover, he didn't say that he wanted to see Grandmaster Mo, but that he wanted to see him. A disciple of the Mo clan who was guarding the door showed a trace of anger on his face. After so long, he had never seen such an arrogant person. However, the other disciple of the Mo clan suddenly reacted and immediately pulled him back. He respectfully said, "So it's official, Chu. Please come in, I will inform the ancestor." Only then did everyone realize that the person in front of them was Chu Xiu of the Ima clan. The one who had just killed a true fire spirit refinement expert in the northern Yan, Chu Xiu. However, as far as they knew, Chu Xiu should still be in the northern Yan. Why did he suddenly come to Eastern Qi? Before the crowd could react, a disciple of the Mo clan walked out and said, "We have an important guest today. The Mirror Lake Manor is not receiving anyone else. Please leave." Hearing this, everyone present cursed Chu Xiu in their hearts. Why did he come to the Mirror Lake Manor instead of staying in the northern Yan? He was delaying their business. Meanwhile, in the Mirror Lake Manor, Mo Yezi was personally entertaining Chu Xiu. Mo Yezi asked someone to serve Chu Xiu a cup of tea and said, "I've heard about what happened to you in the northern Yan. TSK, I didn't expect you to have grown to such an extent. In the past, you, Fei Hong, and the others were all outstanding figures among the younger generation. Now, you're in a different world from them." Mo Yezi sighed with emotion. In fact, he had seen Chu Xiu's path. In the past, during the Divine Armament Convention, Chu Xiu was not considered to be at the top even amongst the younger generation. Later, when he rescued Luo Feiheng, Chu Xiu could already stand shoulder to shoulder with Ying Bailu and the others. But now, even the true fire spirit refinement expert, who stood at the peak of the Jianghu, had fallen at the hands of Chu Xiu. People couldn't help but feel that the world was changing too fast. It should be said that only Chu Xiu was moving too fast. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "It's okay for others to praise you, but you can't think so yourself. I know my own strength. I was able to kill Fang Jinwu because he was unprepared. My opponent had been poisoned by the intestine-severing goo in advance, so I was able to kill him. However, the process was also full of danger. It took me so much effort to kill an old true fire spirit refinement realm expert. If I'm flattered by others, I'll find a true fire spirit refinement realm expert at his peak to fight. I'll probably die before I know it." Mo Yezi nodded. It was good that Chu Xiu had such a mentality. He was old and had seen many things. There were many martial artists in the Jianghu who rose quickly but fell even faster. Their strength and fame came too suddenly. As a result, they became arrogant and did stupid things. There were countless people who did stupid things. By the way, you didn't come to my Mirror Lake Manor just to see this old man, right? Mo Yezi's friendship with Chu Xiu was not that deep. he treated Luo Feiheng as his daughter. At this moment, he was so kind to Chu Xiu only because Chu Xiu was Luo Feiheng's good friend. Now that Chu Xiu came to find him, he didn't believe that Chu Xiu came just to reminisce. Chu Xiu took out the Sky Demon Dance and placed it in front of Mo Yezi and said, "Master Mo, you must remember this Sky Demon Dance. When you fought with Feng Jinwu, this saber was damaged. I just want Master Mo to take a look and see if you can repair it. You can tell me what materials you need and what price you need." Mo Yezi examined the cracks on the Sky Demon Dance and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. TSK, the strength of your heavenly demon dance is already comparable to a divine weapon, and even stronger than the majority of divine weapons, but in the end, it was cracked by someone empty-handed. An expert in the true fire spirit refinement realm is really terrifying. After carefully examining it, Mo Yezi stroked his beard and said, "You are good friends with Feihong. Your Sky Demon Dance was also made by me before, so there is no need to mention the price. However, if you want to repair it, there are some difficulties. One of them is materials. You don't need to take ordinary materials. My Mirror Lake Manor has everything. However, the main body of your Sky Demon Dance is made from the Sky Demon Order of the Kunlun Devil Cult. If you use other materials of a lower grade, I'm afraid the power of the Sky Demon Dance will be affected. Secondly, you should have also discovered that your strength can be considered as an expert even among martial Dao grandmasters. In terms of weapons, the Heavenly Demon Dance is a bit outdated. You must change it to a divine weapon to be able to exert your strength to the fullest." Chu Xiu frowned and said, "But if you want to nurture the Sky Demon Dance into a divine weapon, it will take too long. If you change to another weapon, not to mention the fact that a divine weapon is hard to find, it might not be as easy to use as the Sky Demon Dance." The Sky Demon Dance originally had the foundation of a divine weapon. It could be said that as long as Chu Xiu carefully nurtured it, it would definitely become a divine weapon in the future. However, the problem was that Chu Xiu's speed was rising too fast. Nurturing a weapon took at least 10 years. It was impossible for him to turn the Sky Demon Dance into a divine weapon in just a few years. Mo Yezi thought about it and said, "That's right, I heard that you once obtained a hungry ghost Dao incarnation in the minor mortal realm?" Chu Xiu nodded. Although he hadn't used the hungry ghost Dao incarnation many times, once he did, it would definitely be noticed. Moreover, there were many people who saw the hungry ghost Dao incarnation in the minor mortal realm. "I have a way to quickly turn your Sky Demon Dance into a divine weapon. That is to use your hungry ghost Dao incarnation as a weapon spirit and integrate it into the Sky Demon Dance. A weapon spirit is not only forged and nurtured. Using an external object as a weapon spirit has existed since ancient times. However, it is very rare because there are very few things that can be used as a weapon spirit. Your hungry ghost Dao incarnation's soul is suitable, so it depends on whether you are willing to do so." Chu Xiu heard this and immediately said, "Of course I am willing to." He himself hadn't used the hungry ghost Dao incarnation a few times. The power of that thing was not small, but it was also of little value. When facing experts, its power would be greatly reduced. Moreover, using this thing required Chu Xiu's mental strength to control it. There were too many limitations, so turning it into a weapon spirit was not a big deal. At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something. He took out the hatred saber of the 7 demon sabers from the space secret box and said, "Master Mo, is it enough to integrate this saber into the Sky Demon Dance as a material?" The 7 demon sabers' strength lay in the power of the saber intent to trigger the opponent's emotions and desires. Among them, Chu Xiu had completely grasped the saber intent of the hatred saber. Without the hatred saber, he could still use the saber intent to trigger the hatred. Therefore, whether the hatred saber was present or not did not matter. Mo Yezi picked up the hatred saber and instantly felt a chill run down his spine due to the intense hatred emanating from it. If it wasn't for the fact that he was also a martial Dao master, he would have been directly devoured by it. After observing it for a while, Mo Yezi sighed and said, "Not bad. This saber was refined using the forging methods of the ancient times. It's made of good materials. The hatred in it can also be integrated into your sky demon dance. It's enough to use as a material. It's even a little extravagant. Chapter 736. Mo Yezi had been in seclusion for many years. Under normal circumstances, he would rarely refine artifacts for others. However, this time, Chu Xiu really attracted his interest. Over the years, he had personally refined many precious weapons into divine weapons, and he had also personally refined some precious weapons into divine weapons. However, he had never inserted an artifact spirit into a divine weapon. It wasn't that Mo Yezi didn't know how to do it, but materials that could be used as artifact spirits were too rare. Moreover, no one would do something so extravagant. Of course, Chu Xiu was a weirdo, so he wasn't in the scope of this discussion. After summoning the human puppet, Chu Xiu gave the hatred saber and the human puppet to Mo Yezi. Right, Grandmaster Mo, how long will it take to repair the heavenly demon dance? Mo Yezi thought for a moment and said, if it was a normal repair, then a few days would be enough. However, I need to insert the hungry ghost Dao incarnation into it and upgrade it to a divine weapon. This will take a long time. This is my first time experimenting with this method, so I can't say for sure. Maybe 1 or 2 months, or maybe 3 or 4 months. Don't worry, I'll send someone to inform you after it's done. Chu Xiu nodded and said, many thanks, Grandmaster. Chu Xiu had a lot of martial arts. Without the heavenly demon dance, he wouldn't be able to use some saber techniques. However, his other martial arts wouldn't be affected. Just as Chu Xiu was about to leave, a person suddenly barged into the room. The Mo clan's rules were very strict. At the very least, none of Mo Yezi's children dared to barge in when Mo Yezi was receiving guests. Therefore, only Luo Feiheng dared to act so presumptuously in the Mirror Lake manner. Mo Yezi treated her like his own daughter and pampered her a lot. At the very least, he treated her better than his own son. Luo Feiheng was dressed in a tight moon-white warrior suit, revealing her graceful figure. There was no trace of makeup on her face, and she was even wearing a white jade crown on her head. With her hair tied up, she looked no different from a man. If one ignored her towering breasts, she could really compete with LV Fengxian to see who was more handsome. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. After not seeing each other for a while, Luo Feiheng's strength seemed to have improved a lot. She had already reached the unity of heaven and man realm, and her aura was not weak either. It was just that she was dressing more and more like a man. She had probably completely let go of herself after leaving the Luo clan. After entering the house, Luo Feiheng was surprised to see Chu Xiu. Why are you here? I heard that you just killed a true fire spirit refinement realm expert. Shouldn't you be lying dead in the Jianghu hall now? Chu Xiu's face darkened slightly. What do you mean by lying on the ground? I'm just recuperating. Luo Feiheng sat beside Chu Xiu as if he was an outsider. She took the tea on the table and drank it in one gulp. It's about the same. Don't care about the details. By the way, I haven't asked you why you are here. Luo Feiheng said, of course, I'm here to ask foster father to help me forge a batch of weapons. Back in the Luo clan, ever since Mo Yezi rescued Luo Feiheng, he had already recognized Luo Feiheng as his own foster daughter. Luo Feiheng didn't resist. For her, Master Mo Yezi was naturally closer to her than her so-called father and old ancestor. Mo Yezi pointed at her and said, didn't I say that if you lack any weapons, you can just take them from the arsenal? Why do we need to split so much between us? Luo Feiheng shook her head and said, it's not the same. Relationships are relationships, and rules are rules. Mirror Lake Manor doesn't belong to you alone. I've already brought the materials and handed them over to my brothers. You just need to give the order. Chu Xiu nodded. This was also one of Luo Feiheng's strengths. She could see things clearly. She didn't care about the small things, but she wouldn't overstep the big things. Mo Yezi shook his head and said, you. All right, I'll tell them to do it. You two haven't seen each other for a long time. It's a good time to catch up. I'll get someone to prepare a banquet. After Imo Yezi left, Luo Feiheng directly leaned on the chair and crossed her legs. She stretched her waist in an extremely unladylike manner and said, I say, Chu Xiu, you're a bit too much. Chu Xiu touched his nose and said, what about me? He hadn't seen Luo Feiheng for a long time, but he didn't seem to provoke her. You still have a part of the 9-branch hall. But after such a long time, you didn't care about it and threw it all to me. You actually made the Guanzhong torture room and Jianghu hall under your command very lively. The treatment of a biological child and an adopted child is really different. Chu Xiu smiled bitterly and said, although I was the one who proposed the establishment of the 9-branch hall, it has always been managed by you. It's no different from your own force. However, this is also my negligence. Take this warrant. If there's a critical situation, you can borrow the power of the Guanzhong torture room and Jianghu hall. You can even borrow the power of the Yinma clan. Of course, if you want to borrow the power of the Yinma clan, you have to find the right person first. Only Senior Wei Shi's clan will help me. As for the others, I can't guarantee. As he spoke, Chu Xiu threw a warrant with his mark to Luo Feiheng. Actually, it wasn't that he didn't care about Luo Feiheng, but he believed in Luo Feiheng's ability. In the original plot, Luo Feiheng's starting point was much lower than now, but she was still able to make the Bu Air Palace very lively. Now that Luo Feiheng was in charge of the 9-branch hall, he believed that she would do better. If Chu Xiu interfered at will, it would be easy to ruin things. Luo Feiheng accepted it without hesitation and didn't stand on ceremony. Chu Xiu also had a part of the 9-branch hall. She didn't need to be polite with Chu Xiu. Oh right, let me ask you something. Do you know what's going on between Lu Fengxian and Yan Fian? How did the two of them get together? Chu Xiu suddenly asked. Previously, Lu Fengxian had been volunteering to help Luo Feiheng deal with some small troubles in the 9-branch hall. Chu Xiu guessed that Luo Feiheng should know something about the situation. Luo Feiheng said in astonishment, didn't you see it with Brother Lu last time? You didn't ask? Yan Fian was also there last time. It wasn't convenient. Luo Feiheng nodded and picked up a fruit. As he nibbled on it, he said, actually, it's nothing much. You also know that Lu Fengxian and Yan Fian have known each other for a long time. Oh right, you guys seem to know each other together. In the end, Brother Lu got the beauty back, but you're still alone. Chu Xiu frowned and knocked on the table, saying, let's talk about the main topic. Luo Feiheng snorted lightly and said, there's no main topic. It's just that a disciple of the Yu Palace ran into some trouble. Brother Lu went up to save the beauty and helped Yan Fian deal with some matters. The two of them stayed together for a period of time. In the end, they fell in love with each other and were lovey-dovey. It's very natural. Speaking of which, that's one of the 4 great beauties of the martial arts world, Yan Fian. Cloud Sword Fairy, let alone Brother Lu, if I were a man and had a beauty in my arms, I would be moved. Chu Xiu said in a low voice, but don't you feel that there's something wrong with this? You don't understand Yan Fian. In her heart, the interests of the sect are absolutely above everything else. Even in Bailu's infatuated pursuit in the past, she kept rejecting him. Why would she be together with Brother Lu now? Luo Feiheng suddenly raised his brows and revealed a mischievous expression, saying, I say, you can't be jealous of Brother Lu, right? What's wrong with Brother Lu? He's not any worse than Ing Bailu. Why can't he get a beauty? I heard that you have a devil sex saintess by your side. She's even Guan Siyu's former wife. TSK, my boss's woman. Just thinking about it makes me excited. If I were a man, I wouldn't be able to last until now. Chu Xiu glared at her. When Luo Feiheng got serious, even men couldn't handle it sometimes. At this moment, a commotion suddenly came from outside the Mirror Lake Manor. Hearing one of the voices, Luo Feiheng's expression immediately turned gloomy. Chu Xiu stood up and said, what's wrong? Is it someone you know? F***CK. It's that fly again. Luo Feiheng's expression turned ugly and he spat out a rare vulgar word. Chu Xiu raised his brows and said, "You're in trouble." Luo Feiheng nodded with an ugly expression and said, "A disgusting fly always pestering me. This time, I came here not only to forge weapons for the 9-branch hall, but also to hide from him." "What's going on?" Luo Feiheng explained everything to Chu Xiu with an ugly expression. Actually, it was very simple. Someone had taken a fancy to her, Luo Feiheng. That person was Sun Zhongming, a disciple of the 9 great clans Sun clan. He was a young talent that had risen recently. In just a short year, he had already entered the 13th rank of the Longhu leaderboard. The martial artists of Chu Xiu's generation had already begun to leave the Longhu leaderboard. At least, the top 5 of the Longhu leaderboard could step into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm at any time. Therefore, some of the new talents had also begun to enter the leaderboard. Sun Zhongming was one of the more outstanding ones. The Sun clan of Jiangdong was considered to be above average among the 9 great clans. Although it was not as powerful as the Ying clan of Shangshui, it was much stronger than the Mo clan of Shangyang and the Dong clan of Jieling. The clan also had a true fire spirit refinement realm ancestor. However, compared to the other aristocratic families, the Sun clan of River East was relatively low-key. They only guarded their own territory and rarely sent their clansmen out to explore the world. Unless there was a truly powerful disciple in the clan, such as Sun Zhongming, they would not do so. The Sun clan of Jiangdong's behavior was ridiculed as a dog that guarded its home. However, it was undeniable that the Sun clan of Jiangdong's conservative behavior was extremely stable, to the point that it could even be compared to the Ying clan of Shangshui. For so many years, the Sun clan of Jiangdong had not declined too much. Even when they were at their weakest and had lost a true fire spirit refinement realm expert, they could still find a few martial Dao grandmasters in the clan. Although allowing their clansmen to wander and fight in the Jianghu could quickly produce amazing disciples, the probability of these disciples dying was not lower than the probability of them eventually becoming martial Dao grandmasters. There was no right or wrong in this matter. It only depended on which was more suitable. Chapter 737. In all fairness, the status of this generation of Jiangdong Sun clan was not low. The 13th place on the Longhu leaderboard was already very high. However, it was a pity that he was pursuing Luo Feiheng. This was because Luo Feiheng would not be interested in anyone. Moreover, as Luo Feiheng narrated, Chu Xiu also understood why Luo Feiheng was so angry that he could not help but curse. This was because Sun Zhongming's methods were too despicable. Both of them were pursuing women, but Ying Bailu was called a Casanova, while Sun Zhongming was called a fool. Ying Bailu's pursuit of Yan Fian was unsuccessful. He was rejected many times, but his infatuation did not change. He tried his best to help her, but he did not make others hate him. After Sun Zhongming was rejected by Luo Feiheng, he went too far. Not only did he pester Luo Feiheng endlessly, but he also used the Jiangdong Sun clan's power to suppress the 9-branch hall and force Luo Feiheng to marry him. Such behavior could not be described as despicable. It could even be called despicable. Luo Feiheng gritted his teeth and said, "If he makes me angry one day, I will stab him to death with my spear." Of course, Luo Feiheng was just saying that. Although Luo Feiheng had done crazy things before, she was not like Chu Xiu, who did not care about anything when he was crazy. The Jiangdong Sun clan's strength and status were obvious. If she really stabbed Sun Zhongming to death with her spear, the 9-branch hall would collapse in an instant. Chu Xiu heard this and shook his head. TSK, femme fatale. Although Luo Feiheng's appearance was indeed extremely beautiful, and it was the kind of beauty that gave off a heroic air, her usual behavior was not like that of a woman. Look at the publicly recognized beauties of the younger generation in the pugilistic world, such as Yan Fian and the Holy Maiden of the Moon-worshipping cult. There were many who admired them, and there were also those who actually pursued them, but there were only those who did not pester them endlessly. Unfortunately, this kind of thing always happened to Luo Feiheng. First there was Xiahou Wujiang, and then there was this Sun Zhongming. Of course, this did not mean that her charm was greater than Yan Fian's or the moon-worshipping sect Sainess's. It was just that those two could not be provoked. Whoever dared to pester Yan Fian or the moon-worshipping cult Saintess would probably end up in a miserable state. Luo Feiheng glared at Chu Xiu. Who the hell are you talking about? To other women, femme fatale might be a compliment, but to Luo Feiheng, it was nothing good. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Didn't you always say that I don't care about your 9 branches? It just so happens that I can help you solve this problem." Luo Feiheng immediately said, "Hey, I say, don't get carried away. You can kill that Fang Jinwu from the northern Yan, but the Sun clan from Jiangdong is different from Fang Jinwu. Don't be impulsive." Luo Feiheng understood Chu Xiu's personality very well. When this guy went crazy, he really did not care about his family, and was capable of doing all kinds of crazy things. Usually, Chu Xiu appeared to be the calmest, but when he went crazy, he was also the most terrifying. "Don't worry, I'm confident. Do I look like the kind of person who would solve problems by killing people?" With that, Chu Xiu walked out directly, and Luo Feiheng immediately followed behind him. In Luo Feiheng's heart, Chu Xiu was certainly not this kind of person. He was this kind of person from the start. At the entrance of the Mirror Lake Manor, 2 Mo clan's martial artists were blocking several people, not letting them enter. In front was a young man in his 20s, wearing a cloud-embroidered robe. He was handsome, and always had a smile on his face, looking very kind and sunny. It was very different from the previous description by Luo Feiheng of a wretched idiot who would resort to underhanded means to woo someone. At this moment, the 2 Mirror Lake Manor's martial artists were trying to persuade him, "Young master, there is an important guest coming today, so the old ancestor really cannot see anyone else." Sun Zhongming still had a smile on his face and said, "I don't want to see your old ancestor, I just want to see Feiheng, I know she is here." Miss Feiheng also does not see guests. Sun Zhongming smiled and said, "You can't see this person, you can't see that person, your Mirror Lake Manor is really arrogant. I want to ask, do you know who I am? Listen to me, don't make me angry, otherwise, even if I kill you here, I will only say sorry to Senior Mo, do you believe me?" The 2 Mo clan's disciples looked at the smiling Sun Zhongming and felt a chill down their spine. Although he had a smile on his face, as if he was joking, they knew that he would really do such a thing. At this moment, Mo Yezi walked out and said lightly, "Young Master Sun, you are a disciple of the River East Sun clan, but you came here to scare the 2 guards of my Mirror Lake Manor. What's the point?" Sun Zhongming smiled and cupped his hands, saying, "Greetings Senior Mo, I was just playing with them, please don't take it to heart. I only want to see Feiheng, I hope Senior Mo will not stop me." Mo Yezi coldly said, "It's not that I want to stop you, but the premise of a man and a woman's love is that both parties must be willing. Feiheng is my adopted daughter, and she admits that she is not worthy of the River East Sun clan, so young Master Sun, please leave." Sun Zhongming indifferently waved his hand and said, "If she is not worthy, then so be it. I don't care." Seeing that Mo Yezi still wanted to say something, Sun Zhongming's face carried a trace of a sinister smile and said, "Senior Mo, you have to be reasonable. Luo Feiheng is only your adopted daughter, not your biological daughter. Don't you think you are a little too controlling? Even if Luo Feiheng hid in the Mirror Lake Manor, it would be useless. I did not force my way in, I was only giving face to Feiheng and Senior Mo. Senior Mo, don't forget one thing, this is the Mirror Lake Manor, not the Hall of Gods." Hearing this, Mo Yezi's face turned red with anger. This Sun Zhongming dared to threaten him here. Sun Zhongming's meaning was clear. Eastern Qi's Hall of Gods was one of the 7 sects and 8 schools, and it forged weapons for most of the forces in the Jianghu. It had a wide network of connections, and the River East Sun clan could not afford to offend them. Or rather, the River East Sun clan could afford to offend them, but they would not provoke the Hall of Gods for a junior disciple like him. But now, Mo Yezi was no longer the master of the Hall of Gods. Since he had retired, most of his old connections were naturally severed. Moreover, Although Mo Yezi was a martial arts grandmaster, everyone in the Jianghu knew that Mo Yezi could not be defeated. He was no match for a stronger oneness of heaven and man. Although Mo Yezi was angry, there was nothing he could do. The world was fickle, and his title as a crafting grandmaster was not enough. When it was time to use someone, even a famous martial arts grandmaster or a sect leader would have to be polite to him. When it was not time to use someone, a junior martial artist like Sun Zhongming could look down on him. This is not the Hall of Gods, but it is also not the river east of the Sun clan. Young man, don't be too arrogant. A voice suddenly came. Sun Zhongming looked at Chu Xiu, who appeared behind Mo Yezi. At this time, Chu Xiu did not display his aura, and he was not the Eastern Qi elite that he was familiar with. Sun Zhongming was about to explode. However, when he saw Luo Feihong behind Chu Xiu, a smile immediately appeared on his face. Feihong, why do you have to avoid me? Do you know how long I have been looking for you? The Wu County is close to the river east. When you were young, I fell in love with you at first sight. If you marry into the Sun clan of the river east, I promise you that you will not be wronged. Sun Zhongming's expression was very affectionate, but when combined with his tone, it was a little disgusting. Chu Xiu and Luo Feihong frowned at the same time, showing a disgusted expression. Chu Xiu sneered and said, "Fell in love at first sight when you were young? How precocious and beastly." Sun Zhongming looked at Chu Xiu with a smile on his face, but his tone was cold. "I am talking with Feihong here, how can any Tom, Dick, or Harry interrupt?" Tom, Dick, or Harry? The corners of Chu Xiu's mouth suddenly curled into a smile. He abruptly raised his head to look at Sun Zhongming. With just a single glance, the expressions of the few guards beside Sun Zhongming at the unity of heaven and man realm changed abruptly as they blocked Sun Zhongming. With just a glance, these experienced martial artists at the unity of heaven and human realm felt a chill all over their bodies. Who was this young man? How could he be so terrifying? One of the guards pulled Sun Zhongming and whispered, "Young master, be careful, this is an expert." Another guard cupped his hands and said cautiously, "May I ask for this young master's name?" "I am Chu Xiu." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said lightly, "Chu Xiu. That Chu Xiu." The guards of the Sun clan felt a chill in their hearts. How many people in the martial world called Chu Xiu were there? He was so young, but with just a glance, he was already so terrifying. Apart from Chu Xiu, who had just killed a true fire spirit refinement realm expert, was there anyone else? The smile on Sun Zhongming's face, which seemed to be in his control at all times, gradually disappeared, and his eyes flickered with shock. The shadow of a tree, the name of a person. The current Chu Xiu was powerful enough to deter them from acting presumptuously with just his name. After being stunned for a while, Sun Zhongming laughed and said, "So it's Brother Chu. I really have a bad mouth. I hope Brother Chu doesn't take offense." Chu Xiu looked at Sun Zhongming and said indifferently, "What did you call me? Brother Chu? Are you worthy? On the Longhu leaderboard, Sword King City's Fang Chi Shao can call me Brother Chu, and Shangshui in Clan Xingbailu can also call me Brother Chu. But what right do you have? Do you think you're worthy of calling me brother?" In the face of Chu Xiu's humiliating words, the guards looked nervous, afraid that Sun Zhongming couldn't help but fall out with Chu Xiu. Fortunately, Sun Zhongming was more shrewd than they had imagined. In the face of Chu Xiu's humiliation, he just took a deep breath, squeezed out a smile, and said, "Official Chu, please forgive me. I was rash. But Official Chu, everything must be reasonable. My pursuit of Feihong is a matter of love. Are you going to stop me?" "Of course, if Official Chu says that Luo Feihong is your woman, I will immediately retreat. I dare not fight with Official Chu." Chapter 738. Sun Zhongming had heard that Luo Feihong and Chu Xiu were good friends, but he also understood Luo Feihong's character very well. He believed that Luo Feihong had nothing to do with Chu Xiu. Of course, if Chu Xiu said that he did, then he could only retreat and think of other methods for the time being. However, at this time, Chu Xiu's face revealed a trace of a sinister smile as he said, "Reason? You should know that I, Chu Xiu, have never been reasonable." Sun Zhangming's expression slightly changed as he said, "Official Chu, what do you mean by this?" Chu Xiu spread out his hands and said, "What I mean is, in the future, I'll have to trouble you to get lost." Sun Zhangming's face revealed a trace of anger, but before he could say anything, Chu Xiu coldly said, "There is something that I'm afraid you don't know. I was the one who first proposed the establishment of the 9-branch hall, so it's best that you put away your laughable schemes. I'm not interested in the *T internal affairs of your Sun clan, and I'm also not interested in getting involved. However, if you really provoke me, I won't kill you, but I can make it so that you can never be the successor of the Sun clan in this life." Chu Xiu's words were very confusing, and Luo Feiheng felt a bit dizzy listening to it. However, Mo Yezi could also be considered an experienced person, and he understood what Chu Xiu meant. In fact, when Chu Xiu previously heard Luo Feiheng's description, he also thought that Sun Zhangming was a wretched scoundrel who was obsessed with lust. However, no matter how much Luo Feiheng resembled a man, she was still a woman. When she described it, there would always be some personal feelings mixed in, but she neglected some things. A person who was able to make a name for himself in the Jianghu within a short year and was ranked 13th on the Longhu leaderboard, even if he was a scoundrel, he was a scoundrel with ability. In the end, when Chu Xiu saw Sun Zhangming, he deliberately humiliated him, but Sun Zhangming forcefully endured it. Moreover, based on his actions and tone, although he was arrogant, he wasn't a brainless person. In that case, why was he still pestering Luo Feiheng? Excluding the fact that he really wanted Luo Feiheng, there was only one possibility left, and that was the thing behind Luo Feiheng. Now that Luo Feiheng had betrayed the Luo family, there was only one thing left for her, the 9-division hall. Previously, Luo Feiheng had already said that Sun Zhangming was only a direct descendant of the Sun clan and not the successor. A title was very particular. For example, Ying Bailu or Fang Qi Shao, who had been appointed as the successor of a faction, could already represent a portion of the faction's authority with their words and actions. Now, Sun Zhangming was still not the successor. Although he was the most famous among the disciples of River East Sun clan, at least in the hearts of the elders of the Sun clan, he wasn't the only one. At the very least, he wasn't too far ahead of the others. If he married Luo Feiheng, not only would he obtain a powerful wife, but he would also be able to take over the 9-branch hall, which was developing rapidly and was not weak. This was very beneficial for him in his fight for the position of successor. This time, Chu Xiu didn't plan to kill anyone. However, if Sun Zhangming didn't know what was good for him, it wasn't like he hadn't done things that harmed others without benefiting himself. By weakening his strength, the strength of the other disciples of the Sun clan would naturally become stronger. The strength that he had painstakingly built up would definitely collapse. Sun Zhangming looked at Chu Xiu with anger, resentment, and deep fear in his eyes. Chu Xiu's conjecture wasn't completely correct, but it was at least 80% correct. A large part of the reason why he pursued Luo Feiheng was indeed because he was interested in the 9-division hall. He wanted to take over the 9-division hall and make it his own strength. However, another part of the reason was indeed because of Luo Feiheng. Chu Xiu was a utilitarian person and always liked to think in terms of benefits. In fact, when Sun Zhangming said that he had fallen in love with Luo Feiheng at first sight since he was young, he wasn't lying. The Wu commandery was close to River East. In the past, Luo Feiheng's father had brought her young to the Sun clan as a guest. That was the first time Sun Zhangming had met Luo Feiheng. However, Sun Zhangming had always been in seclusion in the clan. Now that his strength had reached a certain level, he was allowed to roam the Jianghu. Previously, when Xiahou Wujiang was pursuing Luo Feiheng, he even wanted the clan to intervene in this matter and warn the Xiahou clan. However, his request was rejected. At that time, Sun Zhangming's strength was slightly mediocre. He hadn't stood out among the many disciples, so the weight of his words was extremely limited. But now, he finally had a chance to roam the Jianghu and finally had a reputation. When he saw that Luo Feiheng was no longer a disciple of the Luo clan and had the backing of the 9 Division Hall, he had some other thoughts. Ying Bailu pursued Yan Fian because he wanted her heart. However, Sun Zhongming only wanted Luo Feiheng's person and the 9 Division Hall behind her. Therefore, he could use even more underhanded methods. He didn't expect to meet Chu Xiu this time. Looking at Sun Zhongming's embarrassed and angry expression, Chu Xiu said indifferently, "What? Was I not clear enough? Or do you really want me to ruin all your plans, or do you want me to kill you?" Chu Xiu's words were calm, but to Sun Zhongming's ears, there was a chill that seeped into his heart. He had no doubt that Chu Xiu would do such a thing. Since Chu Xiu dared to kill a powerhouse in true fire, what else would he not dare to do? At least after killing Fang Jinwu, the entire Jianghu saw one thing: Chu Xiu's boldness. At that moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Sun Zhongming and stopped Chu Xiu's terrifying aura. He smiled and said, "My disciple is insensible. Official Chu, please don't take offense. Please don't lower yourself to the level of a junior." The person who appeared in front of Chu Xiu was a middle-aged man who also had the strength of a martial Dao master. Seeing him appear, Sun Zhongming immediately breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, "Fourth uncle." The Sun family of River East was huge, and the factions in the family were also complicated. This fourth uncle, Sun Qili, was on his father's side. He had once helped his father fight for the position of the family leader, so he was truly one of them. Sun Zhongming came out to roam the Jianghu. He was one of the few people in the Sun family who could make a name for himself at a young age in the past decade. The other members of the Sun family did not care about it, but his father could not ignore it. Therefore, he specially sent Sun Qili, who was running the family business outside, to look after it. This time, when Sun Zhongming came to the Mirror Lake Villa, Sun Qili immediately came as soon as he knew. He was not afraid of anything else, but he was afraid that Sun Zhongming would really become enemies with the Mirror Lake Villa on impulse. Although the Sun family could afford to offend Mo Yezi, he was after all a crafting grandmaster. Who knew when they would need him, so it was better to be cautious. He also did not expect that he did not become enemies with Mo Yezi, but instead attracted the attention of Chu Xiu, who was even more difficult to deal with. Chu Xiu stared at Sun Qili, and in an instant, a strong pressure came straight at Sun Qili. In an instant, Sun Qili felt as if the Chu Xiu in front of him had turned into the incarnation of a devil. An endless rain of blood fell, and the cries of ghosts and gods descended. The horrifying aura made Sun Qili feel an illusion of suffocation. "Junior? Don't you have to take responsibility for the junior's wrong words? You want me to not lower myself to the junior's level? Fine, I will meet you, how about that?" Sun Qili's expression changed several times. The shadow of a tree, the name of a person. The Jianghu was full of rumors that Chu Xiu was able to kill Fang Jinwu, so his strength was terrifying. However, those who were too far away did not pay much attention to it. It was not until Chu Xiu stood in front of him that Sun Qili realized that this Chu Xiu was even more terrifying than the rumors said. Pointing at the outside of the Mirror Lake Manor, Chu Xiu spat out a single word, "Scram." Sun Qili's face was ashen. He did not say a word, but directly turned around and left with Sun Zhongming. Mo Yezi shook his head helplessly. Although he had long seen through the Jianghu, he could not help but sigh when he saw this scene. It was really good to have strength. He was a grandmaster who could only craft weapons and not fight enemies. Even a junior like Sun Zhongming dared to speak in front of him. If it was Chu Xiu, a single word from his mouth would make Sun Qili scram, not even daring to let out a fart. What was the difference? This was the difference. On the other hand, Luo Feiheng had a strange expression on her face. It was as if she had only met Chu Xiu for the first time. Luo Feiheng had known Chu Xiu for a long time. Back at the God Weapon Conference, they were already familiar with each other before they had even reached the Three-Flower Realm. Because of this, although she knew about Chu Xiu's reputation and strength, she could not see it clearly. It was only at this moment that she understood the status of Chu Xiu in the Jianghu. He was someone who could make the Sun clan of the 9 great clans concede. Chu Xiu turned his head and smiled at Luo Feiheng. The trouble has been solved. Luo Feiheng was stunned for a moment. However, she then snorted softly and said, "What if that fly comes looking for trouble after you leave?" Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Then he doesn't take me seriously. When that time comes, I will personally go to the Sun clan of Jiangdong and discuss with them about disciplining their young disciples." At this moment, more than 10 miles away from Mirror Lake Villa, Sun Qili's expression was livid. Although the Sun clan of Jiangdong did not leave Jiangdong, they still had to do business. Sun Qili was smooth and slick in dealing with people. He was also strong, which was why he often wandered outside and had a certain reputation in the Jianghu. But because of the reputation of the Sun clan of Jiangdong, for so many years, no one had ever dared to tell him to scram in front of him. Sun Zhongming also suppressed his anger and said, "This Chu Xiu is so arrogant. Fourth uncle, when has the Sun clan ever suffered such a great humiliation?" Sun Qili snorted coldly and said, "Put away your petty thoughts. Don't involve the Sun clan in everything. It's only you and I who have been humiliated. If you want to drag the entire Sun clan into this, will your second uncle and the others agree? In the future, don't even think about that Luo Feiheng. Women are everywhere. She won't make a difference. The same goes for the 9-branch hall. If you want to have power, you have to do it yourself. With your current status, there's no need for you to take the risk and become enemies with Chu Xiu. This guy is a lunatic. If we really anger him, we will be the ones to suffer." Chapter 739. Sun Zhongming was indeed very reluctant to part with Luo Feiheng, and Sun Qili was also angry at Chu Xiu's attitude. But both of them were utilitarian people. In front of interests, they could temporarily throw away their dignity and other things. They would remember this hatred, and it would not be too late to take revenge in the future. But now, they did not have the guts to provoke Chu Xiu. At this time, Chu Xiu had just killed Fang Jinwu, who was in the true fire spirit refinement realm, and his reputation was like the sun in the sky. Moreover, his foundation was in northern Yan and Guangzhong torture room. The Sun family's power could not reach there, so they could only endure it for the time being. At this time, in Mirror Lake Villa, after helping Luo Feiheng solve this problem, Chu Xiu was ready to leave first. He did not know when the heavenly demon dance would be completely promoted to a divine weapon, so Chu Xiu would certainly not wait here all the time. Therefore, Chu Xiu left directly and was ready to return to northern Yan. But before he could go far, he ran into Mr. Lu and Mei Qinglian, who were in a hurry. Seeing Chu Xiu, Mr. Lu immediately breathed a sigh of relief and said, "I finally found him. If I didn't find him again, I would really go crazy." Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Did something happen in Guangzhong torture room or Jianghu hall?" If it was Mr. Lu who came to find him, it might be because of the Mo clan, but now even Mei Qinglian had come. Could it be that during the time he was out, his old nest had been moved? Mr. Lu shook his head and said, "Don't worry, it's not about you. The Ma clan wants to gather everyone for a meeting. I came to inform you that you and the Holy Maiden will come. But we didn't expect that you would not be in Yanjing City, so we came to Eastern Qi to look for you. We just happened to meet." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "What happened?" Mr. Lu chuckled and said, "I'm afraid that the moon-worshipping sect can't hold on any longer. Therefore, the head of the 9 divine magispriests of the moon-worshipping sect, the East Emperor, has come to our hidden devil clan to discuss the alliance." The bright demon bloodline and the hidden demon bloodline had been hostile to each other for many years. Now the two bloodlines were going to join hands. This was definitely a big event that would shake the whole Jianghu. However, Chu Xiu had a calm expression on his face. He had already expected this. The moon-worshipping cult was indeed very strong. It was so strong that many people in the pugilistic world thought it was the second Kunlun devil cult. Unfortunately, the moon-worshipping cult was not the Kunlun devil cult. When the Kunlun devil cult was still around, they were truly invincible. The Iron Emperor Castle wanted to resist the Kunlun devil cult, but it was destroyed by Dugu Weiwei's arrow. When those devil envoys conferred by the Kunlun devil cult came to those righteous sects to handle some matters, 99% of those righteous sects would bow down and greet them as Lord. What heroes! All of them were women. The moon-worshipping cult did not have such momentum now. If the people of the moon-worshipping cult went out to show off, they would still be spat on and called evil. Right now, the moon-worshipping church was fighting against 80% of the forces in the entire Jianghu. It was already not easy for the moon-worshipping church to resist for so long. Only now did they start to think of ways to ask for help. This was already somewhat beyond Xu Xiu's expectations. What does the Hidden Devil Clan mean? Do you agree or not? Mr. Lu shook his head and said, you know the situation of the Hidden Devil Clan. Without a steward, who would dare to agree? That's why the meeting this time gathered all the people who are qualified to inherit the Hidden Devil Clan, and finally made a decision. Time was tight, and Mr. Lu did not have time to talk too much with Xu Xiu. The few of them set off first, talking as they walked. The attitude of the Hidden Devil Clan did not need to be expressed first. Everyone had to unify their opinions first. Therefore, Xu Xiu did not care about the others. He directly asked, what does Senior Wei mean? Mr. Lu said in a deep voice, Senior Wei's meaning is very simple. One word, sincerity. The Hidden Devil Clan will put in as much effort as the moon-worshipping cult is sincere. Let's not talk about the grudges of the past. The righteous and the demonic cannot coexist. We can't just watch the moon-worshipping cult be destroyed by the righteous sections. Of course, if the moon-worshipping cult just wants to take advantage of us and use us as a shield, then we don't have to care so much. In any case, in the end, our demonic lineage will not be destroyed. Along the way, Mr. Lu directly brought Xu Xiu to a secret stronghold of the Hidden Devil Clan in eastern Qi. This place was different from the place where Xu Xiu received Dugu Weiwei's inheritance. That was the real secret place of the Hidden Devil Clan. How could they let Eastern Emperor Tai enter it? This secret stronghold was under a barren mountain. A large space was directly cut out, forming a small palace. There were many demonic cultivators coming and going. Most of them covered their faces and were in all kinds of strange shapes. The Hidden Devil Clan had many demonic cultivators who could not see the light. Of course, it did not matter to Xu Xiu and the others. Mr. Lu was a member of the Phaseless Demon sect and was backed by a big sect. Xu Xiu and Mei Qinglian had already been exposed, and they had withstood the attack of the Righteous Alliance. They could be considered to have the qualifications to walk in the pugilistic world openly. At this time, seeing Xu Xiu coming, the surrounding martial artists of the Hidden Devil Clan also cast various gazes at Xu Xiu. Some were envious, some were jealous, some were disdainful and even malicious. Xu Xiu was too famous in the pugilistic world. He was so famous that he did not seem to be a member of the Hidden Devil Clan. He was simply dazzling. Although Xu Xiu had risked his life to obtain all of this, a person's heart was just that dark. What right did he have to enjoy the respect and fame of the people in Jianghu, while they could only hide in the endless darkness and act like rats? Therefore, among the entire Hidden Devil Clan, there were always a few who had a good impression of Xu Xiu. There were also some who had a bad impression. Of course, there were more who did not care. Xu Xiu was too lazy to think so much about these people's thoughts. Mr. Lu directly brought Xu Xiu to a palace to see Wei Shiya. At this time, in the palace, in addition to Wei Shiya, Chu Wuji was also there. Seeing Xu Xiu coming here, before Wei Shiya could speak, Chu Wuji said with a strange look on his face, Fang Jinwu actually died in your hands. TSK, I didn't expect it. That old thing has always been cunning and slippery, but in the end, he did not have a good end. Chu Xiu asked, Senior Chu knows Fang Jinwu? Chu Wuji sneered and said, we have fought. In the past, Fang Jinwu also came to my Wei Kingdom to seek for help. How can I not count him in? However, this old thing's strength is preserved very well. He is definitely not the kind of old man who has no combat power. I didn't take any advantage of him. Hearing Chu Wuji's words, Chu Xiu was also speechless. This is a real ruthless person. In the martial arts real pellet state, there are many people who are more powerful than him, and this Chu Wuji in front of me is one of them. Although Chu Xiu did kill Fang Jinwu, Chu Xiu also had to admit that his trick accounted for 40% of the credit. Facing the enemy head-on, he was still not a powerhouse of the real fire spirit refinement state. However, this Chu Wuji actually challenged Fang Jinwu head-on with the real pellet state. The most important thing was that he actually retreated. Although his record was not as dazzling as Chu Xiu's, the difficulty was no less than Chu Xiu killing Fang Jinwu. After all, at that time, he faced Fang Jinwu in his heyday. Wei Shia said on the side, Chu Xiu did a good job. Taking advantage of the time when the Great Light Temple's power is not in Northern Yen, you can do whatever you want in the Northern Yen land. It probably won't take long for the battle between the righteous and demonic factions to come to an end. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Oh? Has the Yinma clan made a decision?" Wei Shia shook his head and said, "No, but the decision of the Yinma clan is no longer important. What's important is that the righteous sect's tolerance has reached a limit. It's time to end it." In recent years, there were only two battles that could be called the righteous and demonic factions. One of them was the Fuyu Mountain battle that Chu Xiu once participated in. The battle between the righteous and demonic factions was started by the righteous martial arts world, but it was only a small-scale one. The strongest martial artist who participated in the battle was only the real fire spirit refinement state, and the main force was only the martial artists of the 5 major sword sections. The rest were just supporting characters. It was not an exaggeration to say that the battle between the righteous and demonic factions was started by the moon-worshipping cult, and the scope was even wider. It almost involved half of the martial arts world. Yi Shaonan, the old celestial master, and the divine monk Rama and other powerhouses of the supreme list who had reached the mysterious heaven and earth realm had already taken action. It was conceivable what would happen in the end. Anyway, regardless of the outcome, the matter was already over. Chu Xiu was still chatting when a martial artist knocked on the door and came in. He said in a low voice, "Elder Wei, East Emperor Tai of the moon-worshipping cult has arrived. The other seniors have invited you over." Wei Shia nodded and waved his hand. He directly led Chu Xiu and the others to the central hall. There was no statue in the central hall of this secret stronghold. It only enshrined a figure shrouded in boundless darkness, and his face could not be seen clearly. It was said that this was the image of Dugu Weiwei in the past. The Yinma clan did not worship gods and Buddhas, but only the demon lord. At this time, under the statue of the demon lord, several figures were shrouded in darkness. The aura they emitted was extremely powerful, and each of them was an expert of the real fire spirit refinement state. Although the Yinma clan could not find a supreme powerhouse who could be ranked among the supreme in the Jianghu, each clan had their own trump card, and their strength was not weak. However, Chu Xiu was a little unfamiliar with the few experts of the real fire spirit refinement state. He had almost never seen any of them. Chu Wuji secretly explained to Chu Xiu. Most of them had similar status as Wei Shia. They were the old people of the Yinma clan. They did not establish their own clan, and only had some descendants and disciples. Among them, only the sect masters of the Phaseless Demon sect and the Scarlet Demon sect were present. Among them, the Phaseless Demon sect had a large number of people and was relatively famous in the Yinma clan. Although the Scarlet Demon sect had a small number of people, the people from the Scarlet Demon sect were all ruthless people. They were feared by the righteous sects even more than the Phaseless Demon sect. These big shots of the Yinma clan were more or less supported by some people. These people were like Chu Xiu and the others. If they were not their disciples, they were on their side. At this time, the door of the palace was pushed open, and a majestic pressure descended. Dong Wang Tai rolled up his sleeves and stepped out of the palace step by step. Immediately, a few people present snorted coldly, and also released a powerful aura to collide with Dongwang Tai. In mid-air, one could clearly hear the sound of the collision of the aura. Chapter 740. The Hidden Devil Clan and the Bright Devil Clan had been fighting for such a long time, and the two sides had never met in peace. Last time, Chu Xiu clearly remembered that Mountain Ghost, one of the 9 divine magispriests of the moon-worshipping cult, was slapped in the face by Wuxia. However, now that the person from the moon-worshipping cult had been replaced by Dongwang Tai, it was not so easy to slap him in the face. Chu Xiu remembered Dongwang Tai's performance in the battle of the righteous and demonic forces in the floating Jade Mountain. It was terrifying. The burning sky mirror had suppressed everyone, and its power was immeasurable. To put it in a gloomy way, in Chu Xiu's eyes, even Wuxia was not a match for Dongwang Tai. He did not know if the other big shots of the Hidden Devil Clan could defeat Dongwang Tai. Dongwang Tai, with this attitude, are you here to ask for help? One of the big shots of the Hidden Devil Clan said coldly. Dongwang Tai said lightly, ask for help? When has the moon-worshipping cult ever asked for help? I have said before that I am here to join hands with the Hidden Devil Clan. If the skin does not exist, how can the hair attach? The Hidden Devil Clan and the Bright Devil Clan are both devils. Now that the righteous sects have made it clear that they want to destroy the moon-worshipping cult, if something happens to the moon-worshipping cult, can you all still hide in the dark and accumulate your strength? The leader of the Een Demon Clan said coldly, that sounds nice. The Hidden Devil Clan and the Bright Devil Clan are both devils, so why did the moon-worshipping cult hide in West Chu and protect itself when the holy cult was destroyed by the righteous sects? The Een Demon Clan was loyal to the Kunlun Devil cult. Among all the people present, they were the most loyal to the Kunlun Devil cult, so naturally, they hated the moon-worshipping cult the most. Moreover, at that time, the moon-worshipping cult not only protected themselves, they even did things like kicking people when they were down. Many of the Kunlun demon cult disciples that escaped to West Chu were harmed by the moon-worshipping cult. Dongwang Tai said lightly, everyone, be honest, with the situation of the Kunlun Devil cult, even if the moon-worshipping cult helped, what could it do? It was nothing more than delaying the collapse of the Great Xia by a few days. The Kunlun Devil cult was propped up by Dugu Weiwei alone. If he's gone, no one can save the Kunlun Devil cult. Dongwang Tai glanced at the phaseless demon sect leader and said solemnly, needless to say, you guys look down on that generation's moon-worshipping cult. Even I look down on it. If cult master Yi Xiaonan could have been born a few hundred years earlier, if I could have been born a few hundred years earlier, how could my moon-worshipping cult stand idly by? With the Kunlun Devil cult gone, our moon-worshipping cult will naturally be the leader of the devil path. We will take advantage of the situation to stir up the Jianghu and ascend to the top of the world. Dongwang Tai's words were extremely arrogant. He even scolded the ancestors of the moon-worshipping cult. In fact, that was exactly what he thought. The war between the righteous and the devil path was such a good opportunity. Countless heroes would appear on the stage, while the moon-worshipping cult of that generation was like a spectator, hiding in the land of West Chu. Even if they were the ancestors of Dongwang Tai and the others, Dongwang Tai would spit on them and call them trash. And he indeed had the qualifications to do so. This generation's moon-worshipping cult was probably the strongest in the history of the moon-worshipping cult, even comparable to the ancestors of the cult. Yi Xiaonan was extremely talented. Without Dugu Weiwei, he was fully deserving of the title of the Devil Path's #1. Once the Heaven-Mending Heart Sutra appeared, who could compete with him? And he, Dongwang Tai, was also the strongest Eastern Emperor Tai in the history of the Devil Path. To be more arrogant, Dongwang Tai had already left the ranks of the 9 great magi. In the past, when people mentioned Dongwang Tai, they would add a title in front of it. He was one of the 9 great magi, Dongwang Tai. But now, he didn't need to. He was Dongwang Tai. His reputation had already surpassed the 9 great magi. Even the other 8 of the 9 great magi combined were not qualified to be compared to him. Wuxia let out a silent sigh. Moon-worshipping cult was able to reach its current scale and reputation not just because of luck. Looking at the current generation of moon-worshipping cult, Yi Xiaonan and Dong Wangtai, which one of them was not stunning? On the other hand, what about the Hidden Devil clan? Apart from himself and the Yin Demon clan's leader, there were some people who only cared about their own interests. There were many good ones in the next generation, such as Chu Wuji, Mr. Lu, Mei Qinglian, and of course, Chu Xiu. Unfortunately, apart from Chu Wuji, the others were too young. Could the Hidden Devil clan hold on until they all grew up? At this time, the other big shots of the Hidden Devil clan did not speak. It was not that they were speechless, but they did not know what to say. Originally, they all thought that moon-worshipping cult was here to ask for help, so they had already drafted in advance what they should ask from moon-worshipping cult. They were already prepared to ask for a lion's share. However, who would have thought that Dong Wangtai would be so confident? His words were extremely arrogant, as if he was in the right, and did not look like he was asking for help at all. At this time, Wuxia, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, Dong Wangtai, you came here to seek an alliance with the Hidden Devil clan. Does Yi Xiaonan not know? Dong Wangtai's entire body was covered in a black robe, and his face was also covered by demonic qi. However, everyone could still feel that Wuxia's words had shaken Dong Wangtai's mind. After a while, Dong Wangtai did not deny it. He just asked, how do you know? Wuxia said indifferently, because with Yi Xiaonan's character, he would never ask for help. I have seen Yi Xiaonan a long time ago. He is an extremely proud person, extremely proud. There are some things that he would rather bear alone than ask for help, even if it is in exchange of benefits. Wuxia also had to admit that Yi Xiaonan had already surpassed everyone in the Hidden Devil clan on this point. An expert must have the mentality of an expert. When you don't have the strength, being so unyielding is called not being flexible. But when you have the strength, this is called confidence, or conceit can also be called conceit. Not everyone has the courage to fight the world alone, but those who have this kind of courage, without exception, are all experts. Of course, there are also madmen. Dong Wangtai was silent for a while, then said, the leader has his own ideas. We can't persuade him, so we can only think of ways to share the leader's burden. The leader really doesn't know about this, but with my position in the moon-worshipping cult, I can also facilitate this matter. Wuxia looked at each other and secretly transmitted his voice to discuss with the other elders of the Hidden Devil clan. Dong Wangtai just stood there with his hands behind his back. His posture was incomparably calm, as if this time it was possible to facilitate an alliance. With the cultivation of Wuxia and the others, they deliberately concealed their voices and used their inner strength to transmit their voices. Not to mention Chu Xiu, even Dong Wangtai could not hear them. However, Chu Xiu was able to discern one thing from the aura emanating from these people, and that was greed. Among these people, the first thing they thought about was not whether to agree to the alliance, but how many benefits they could get from this alliance, and how many things they could extort from the moon-worshipping cult. Some people were even thinking about whether the moon-worshipping cult really had these things, and whether they should fight with others for them. Hearing this mess of words, Wuxia's face was already extremely gloomy. He shouted in a low voice, all of you, shut up. Everyone, outsiders are watching. Are you really going to embarrass yourselves in front of the moon-worshipping cult? Wuxia's seniority was right there. Perhaps his strength was not the strongest in the entire Hidden Devil clan, but his seniority was the highest. At this time, when he spoke, everyone also quieted down. Glancing at the crowd, Wuxia said in a low voice, everyone, don't forget who is standing in front of you. It is the moon-worshipping cult. The conditions you have proposed are so harsh. Even if Dong Wangtai agrees, when we return to the moon-worshipping cult, do you think Yi Xiaonan will agree? I don't need to say anything about the current situation, you have all seen it. The situation is already very critical, and the Hidden Devil clan can't just stay out of it, so my opinion is to agree. But since we've agreed, then we'll have another war between the righteous and demonic paths. Don't let my demonic path lose too miserably. The conditions you've put forward are simply forcing moon-worshipping cult to turn against us. Think about it carefully. If the moon-worshipping cult came to the moon-worshipping cult to extort like this 500 years ago, how would you react? These people present were all big shots of the hidden devil clan, and they were all experts who had reached the true fire spirit refining realm. Even though their qualifications were not as good as Wei Shiya's, they were not young and had a lot of experience. Hearing Wei Shiya's words, they temporarily put aside the greed in their hearts and put away the exorbitant conditions. In fact, if it was just one person asking for an exorbitant price, the moon-worshipping cult would most likely agree. But now, with so many people demanding an exorbitant price, they were simply toying with the moon-worshipping cult. At that time, Dong Wang Tai and Yi Shaonan would probably be the first to fly into a rage. However, someone still said, "Elder Wei, what you said makes sense. But the problem is, since my Ima bloodline has produced someone, how can we not raise any conditions? Otherwise, it would be too much of a loss." Wei Shiya said calmly, "I will make the conditions, but it will be for the entire, hidden devil clan, not for any one of you." No one made a sound. The mentality of not worrying about scarcity but worrying about inequality has always existed. If I can't get it, no one else can either. Wei Shiya's conditions were acceptable to them. Looking at Dong Wang Tai, Wei Shiya said in a low voice, "If you want the Yinma clan to take action, we can. The first is to hand over the heavenly demon creation flag to the Yinma clan. The second is that the Yinma clan can take action, but we will not help you fight against the righteous sects and be your shield. We will only be responsible for intercepting the forces that are attached to the big sects, so that your moon-worshipping cult will not be besieged. As for the third, I want you to hand over the traitors of the Earth Demon Hall who betrayed the moon-worshipping cult. As long as your moon-worshipping cult can agree to these three conditions, we can swear today that we will help your moon-worshipping cult at the critical moment." Chapter 741. The three conditions put forward by Wei Shiya were well thought out. They were for the sake of the entire Yinma clan, and not just one person would benefit from it. The first condition was that the good fortune heavenly devil flag, which represented the orthodox devil Dao, had been snatched away by the moon-worshipping cult during the righteous devil battle on Mount Fuyu. The symbolic meaning of this thing was greater than its actual function. However, it was the orthodox representative of the Kunlun devil cult in the past. Now that it had returned to the Yinma clan, it could be considered as returning to its original owner. The second condition was that the Yinma clan did not want to damage their own strength because of the moon-worshipping cult. It was fine to help share some of the power on the periphery, but in the key areas, it still needed to rely on the moon-worshipping cult itself. As for the third condition, it involved some of the old grievances of the Kunlun devil cult. In the past, when the countless forces under the Kunlun devil cult faced the righteous Dao alliance, these people would either choose to fight to the death, or hide underground like the Yinma clan and cause some trouble for the righteous Dao sects from time to time. However, there were always some people who did not have strong willpower and chose to block the deserters. As for the actions of these people, the Yinma clan did not pursue anything. Everyone had their own ambitions, and not everyone wanted to die. However, there were some people whose actions could not be forgiven by the Yinma clan, such as the Earth Demon Hall that Wei Shiya mentioned. The Earth Demon Hall was also a large hall under the command of the Kunlun devil cult in the past. When the righteous Dao sects attacked, its hall master not only did not choose to fight head-on, but also secretly attacked his fellow sect members, snatching a large number of treasures and resources and escaping. This kind of betrayal was even more abominable than the enemy. All these years, the Yinma clan wanted to take revenge, but they were stopped by the moon-worshipping cult. The reason was very simple. After the people of the Earth Demon Hall escaped, they chose to give most of their treasures to the moon-worshipping cult in exchange for their protection. At that time, during the righteous Dao War, only the moon-worshipping cult could stand against the exhausted righteous Dao sects and the remnants of the Kunlun devil cult. Dong Wang Tai pondered for a while, and after a long while, he spat out a word, "Yes." The conditions of the Yinma clan were just within his acceptable range. Although the good fortune heavenly demon flag was precious, with the power of their moon-worshipping cult, even without the good fortune heavenly demon flag, they were still the #1 sect of the devil Dao. If the hidden devil lineage wanted it, they could just give it to them. As for the Yinma clan not going all out, Dong Huang Tai had already expected this. On the contrary, if the Yinma clan said that they would go all out to help moon-worshipping cult, Dong Huang Tai would be suspicious. The last point was actually what Dong Huang Tai did not care about. It was the ancestors of the moon-worshipping cult who promised to protect those traitors, not them. Over the years, those guys were still sensible, so the moon-worshipping cult had never cared about them. But now that the moon-worshipping cult was facing a crisis, what was a promise made hundreds of years ago? Wei Xia pointed at the statue of the demon lord behind him and said in a deep voice, "The statue of Lord Dugu is above. Today, I, the Yinma clan, swear that when the moon-worshipping cult is in danger, we will help once. If we violate this oath, we will be devoured by the inner demons and fall to Avicii forever." Most of the people in the demon path were not trustworthy. But at the level of Dong Huang Tai and Wei Xia, they already disdained to lie. Therefore, this oath was actually just to give the other party a reassurance. The Yinma clan didn't worship gods or Buddha, they only respected the demon lord. If they violated this, they would not really be devoured by the inner demons, but they would at least be ridiculed by the bright demons for the rest of their lives. Dong Huang Tai said in a deep voice, "Someone will send the heavenly demon creation flag later. But although the moon-worshipping cult will not protect those guys from the Earth Demon Hall, you will have to deal with them yourselves. The moon-worshipping cult has no time to help you deal with the traitors. And even without the protection of the moon-worshipping cult, those guys have already taken root in the land of West Chu and relied on the West Chu royal family. That's all the information, you can deal with it yourselves." After saying that, Dong Huang Tai left directly. He was very straightforward. The moon-worshipping cult had really reached a very critical moment. Dong Huang Tai did not even want to delay for a quarter of an hour. After a moment of silence, someone said, "Who will deal with those traitors this time?" Dealing with the traitors of the Earth Demon Hall was not only to take revenge for the Kunlun Devil cult, but there were also some benefits to it. In the past, the Earth Demon Hall had secretly attacked their fellow disciples, so they held many of the treasures of the Kunlun Devil cult in their hands. These treasures had been given to the moon-worshipping cult by the Earth Demon Hall. A part of it was used as a proof of allegiance in exchange for the moon-worshipping cult's protection, but a part had fallen into their hands. Now that they were going to deal with the people from the Earth Demon Hall, they naturally had to take back the treasures of the Kunlun Devil cult. How to distribute these things was a problem. The current state of the Yinma clan was very bad. There was no one who could take charge of the overall situation, but they still wanted to fish for benefits. Wei Xia relied on his experience and reputation to voice out more opinions and suppress the crowd. But the problem was that on other issues, everyone would give Wei Xia face, but when it came to benefits, his reputation as a senior was not useful. Looking around, Wei Xia secretly shook his head and said, "We don't need to deal with those bastards from the Earth Demon Hall together. Send out some of the younger generation and let them discuss it among themselves. We old men have been in charge of the Yinma clan for so long, it's time to give these younger generation a chance to stand out. When we kick the bucket in the future, they will still be the ones sitting here discussing important matters. It's good to get to know each other first." The few big shots of the Yinma clan all nodded. This method could be considered fair. At least no one would suffer a loss. After agreeing to send their people over the next day, the crowd dispersed. Returning to his own palace, Wei Xia sighed and said, "You all saw that the Yinma clan is in such a situation now. They all have their own thoughts. My generation can still hold on, but I don't know what to do for the next generation." Chu Wuji lazily slumped on the chair and said, "Old Wei, you worry too much. In this world, there are righteous and there are demons. The Yinma clan is not living up to expectations, so you can't extend the life of the entire Yinma clan. The legacy of the Kunlun Devil cult won't be lost. It's just a change of name." Chu Wuji was very open-minded. Of course, this was also because he wasn't a member of the Yinma clan. He had joined the demon path halfway. He used to be a genuine member of the royal family, a righteous hero. So the only person Chu Wuji was grateful to was Wei Shiya. As for the other Yinma clan members, why would he care about their lives? Wei Shiya sighed again. Alright, let's talk about this later. I'm going to West Chu this time to deal with those bastards from the Earth Demon Hall. I'm going to let Mei Las and Chu Xiu go. You don't need to go. Otherwise, they'll say that I bullied people again. Chu Wuji nodded. He also knew that it would be a bit troublesome if he went. Mei Qinglian was the only successor of the Yinma clan, so she could naturally go. Representing Wei Shiya's clan to West Chu, Chu Xiu and Chu Wuji could actually go. However, Chu Wuji had been famous for a long time. Although he was a martial Dao grandmaster, he was one of the strongest martial Dao grandmasters. Like Northern Yan Xiangwu and Great Light Temple Su Du, he had the qualifications to fight with true fire spirit refinement realm experts. So if Chu Wuji went, it would most likely incur the dissatisfaction of the others. Although Chu Xiu had the battle record of killing a true fire spirit refinement realm expert, his age and seniority were all here. Chu Wuji couldn't do it. If it was Chu Xiu who also couldn't do it, then they would be going a bit too far. On the morning of the second day, the people sent by the few big bosses of evil Dao had already gathered in the central hall. As the direct descendants of those big bosses of evil Dao, almost all of them had the strength of a martial Dao grandmaster. Of course, there were other martial artists of the Yinma clan, such as Mei Qinglian. Her Yinma clan called itself a clan, but she was the only one left in the entire Yinma clan. Moreover, she was close to Wei Shiya, so she could also be considered as a member of Wei Shiya's clan. Of course, the strength of these other branches of the Yinma clan might not be too strong. The better ones had martial Dao Grand Masters. The worse ones couldn't even find a martial Dao Grand Master. They could only send one of them to follow behind and maybe they could get some benefits. So at this time, there were nearly 100 people gathered in the hall, among which there were a total of 10 martial Dao Grand Masters. Seeing Chu Xiu's arrival, the expressions of everyone present changed subtly, especially the other martial Dao grandmasters. Compared to Chu Xiu, they were all martial artists of the previous generation, but in the end, a junior like Chu Xiu was standing in the same position as them, which made them feel a little awkward. At this time, a middle-aged martial artist with a slender figure and red pupils in a black robe stood out and coughed. Everyone, since everyone is here, then we should discuss how to make a move. The things that the old ancestors have given us should be done quickly. If the battle between the righteous and demonic paths is delayed because of those bastards of the Earth Demon Hall, wouldn't it be a pity? However, that group of bastards has multiplied in West Chu for hundreds of years, their power has already been deeply rooted, and they have also submitted to the West Chu Imperial Court. It will be a little difficult to get rid of them in one go. So before we make a move, we should prepare everything. I have already asked my good friend, the rogue cultivator of the West Chu Devil Path, Shadowblade esteemed Si Kuang, to inquire about that group of bastards. We will first make a rough plan, and when we arrive at the place and get the information, we will modify it and make a move immediately. Hearing this middle-aged martial artist's words, Chu Xiu immediately frowned. Where did this guy come from? He came up with an "I'm already prepared, and you all have to listen to my commands" look. He really doesn't know what he is talking about. But as he said this, a small half of the martial artists present nodded, as if they were quite in agreement. Chapter 742. This time, Chu Xiu really didn't plan to stand out, but it seemed that someone was more high-profile than him. Chu Xiu sent a voice transmission to Mr. Lu, who was beside him. Who is this guy? Is he powerful? Mr. Lu came here on behalf of the Phaseless Demon Sect. He was a new martial arts master of the sect. Although he wasn't the strongest, he definitely had the greatest potential. Therefore, this kind of mission that was not very dangerous but had obvious benefits was usually carried out by Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu looked at Chu Xiu in surprise and said, "You don't know him? Then you must have heard of his master. He's the 10 Directions Old Devil, Yuan Tianfang of the Devil Cliff Cave in the East Pole Mountain. He was already a big shot in the Jianghu decades ago. He's Yuan Tianfang's eldest disciple, 9 in Red Abyss Xing Situ. He used to be ranked more than 40 on the ranking list, but because he dared to kill the disciples of the 5 major sword sects to forge swords, he was chased for thousands of miles. Therefore, he has been hiding in the dark and was removed from the ranking list. Hearing Mr. Lu's words, Chu Xiu finally had some impression of him. After all, there were only so many powerhouses in the Jianghu. His master, 10 Directions Old Devil, Yuan Tianfang, was a powerhouse in the true fire spirit refinement state. He was also the big shot who shouted at the East Emperor yesterday and asked for help. He became famous a few decades ago. After stepping into the true fire spirit refinement state, he defeated 2 powerhouses in the true fire spirit refinement state from the true martial sect and the Chunyang Dao sect, crippling one and seriously injuring the other. However, when he attacked Longhu Mountain, he was hit by an old Taoist who served the old Taoist master with a horsetail whisk. Since then, he fled to the Devil Cliff Cave in the East Pole Mountain in the East Sea to recuperate and cultivate. It seemed that he also took in many disciples. And Xing Situ was very bold like his master. His nickname was the 9 in Red Abyss. In fact, this was the name of the 2 murderous demon swords. They were once divine weapons refined by the Kunlun devil cult, but they were destroyed during the demon-slaying war. After obtaining the forging method from Yuan Tianfang, Xing Situ began collecting materials. In order to speed up the process, he slaughtered the disciples of the 5 major sword sects and used their blood to forge the sword. Although he succeeded in forging the sword in the end, the cultivators from the 5 great sword factions chased after him for a distance of over 500 kilometers. He dared not show himself for over a decade. Generally speaking, this pair of master and disciple were extremely daring people, but at the same time, they had an extremely high reputation in the hidden devil clan. After all, they had killed their way out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Of course, from Chu Xiu's point of view, and even Mr. Lu's point of view, the actions of the master and disciple were not as good as those of Chu Xiu. In the past, the number of people Chu Xiu had provoked might not be less than theirs. At that time, Chu Xiu could also choose to hide underground and wait for a few decades to pass before coming out again. In any case, his cultivation was high enough and his lifespan was sufficient. But Chu Xiu chose to gather all his strength and fight against the alliance of the righteous sects. In the end, he won and could walk in the Jianghu openly. He was more daring than the master and disciple. Although the 2 of them acted crazily, they ran away after the madness, which was somewhat anticlimactic. Chu Xiu chuckled. So what if he was famous? Back then, he was chased all over the Jianghu. Now he came out to pretend to be a senior. On the other side, Xing Situ was talking about his plan, but Chu Xiu's laughter was extremely harsh, which made him frown. Chu Xiu, what are you laughing at? Ignoring him, Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, let's go. With that, Chu Xiu, Mei Qinglian, and Mr. Lu left with some of the Diabolism warriors who were on good terms with Wei Shiya. Xing Situ said angrily, Chu Xiu. What do you mean? You want to leave before the task given by the great ancestors is completed? What are you trying to do? Chu Xiu turned around and said lightly, to complete the task, of course. The great ancestors didn't say who would be in charge of this matter. What are you doing standing here and telling us what to do? Of course, I'm a kind person. I won't stop you if you want to be the commander, but don't think about ordering me. Who knows if you will use your position for personal gain and deliberately send people you don't know to die? Or if you will monopolize most of the treasures in the end? None of the people present were idiots. They had thought about what Chu Xiu said before. Xing Situ had taken the lead with a show of strength. Of course, it wasn't out of goodwill that he wanted to be the commander, but because everyone was in a state of disunity. If Xing Situ were to be the commander, he would be the one to take the initiative. However, most of the people present didn't want to offend Situ Xing, so they didn't say anything. They didn't expect Chu Xiu to say it so directly. Xing Situ pointed at Chu Xiu, and his face was instantly filled with anger. Nonsense. Why would I secretly plot against my fellow disciples when we are in a crisis? In fact, Chu Xiu really thought too much of Xing Situ. He really didn't want to harm anyone. The people present were all the trusted successors of the various big shots of the Yinma bloodline, and there were also some well-known branches of the Yinma bloodline. It was hard to say which one of them was angered, so he just wanted to get some benefits at the end. At least half of Chu Xiu's words were slander against him. Chu Xiu waved a hand casually. I don't care if that's what you think, but it's impossible for us to all listen to you. The forefather wants results, not the process. It doesn't matter if we attack together or not, as long as we get rid of the remaining evildoers in the end, everything will be fine. So now, let's get ready to move. If you want to follow, don't listen and don't cause trouble, then I won't refuse you. If you want to cause trouble, then get out of the way. Otherwise, it won't look good on everyone. Xing Situ stood up and said coldly, that's easy for you to say. If you take some people with you, everyone's strength will be lacking. If we fail the mission, all of us will be implicated, and the Yinma clan will be humiliated. Then what else do you want? Chu Xiu smiled coldly. You can go, but the others stay. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Two long swords, one black and one red, appeared in Xing Situ's hands. You want people to stay? You think you're worthy? You didn't even dare show your face when you were chased by the righteous sects, but now you dare to be rude to me? Chu Xiu. You're courting death. Xing Situ snorted and slashed out with his two swords. One of them carried a murderous aura, and when it was unsheathed, there was even a surge of blood-red light. It was a terrifying sight. The other carried a deep aura of death. When it slashed out, the sound of ghosts wailing and gods howling filled the air. It was a terrifying sight. In order to forge these two demonic weapons, Xing Situ had killed countless people and had even been chased for thousands of miles. But now that the 9 red abyss had appeared, it was indeed worthy of the price he had paid. Chu Xiu formed a seal with both hands, and his body shone with a dazzling golden Buddhist light. His qi and blood were boiling, and the great sun-changing technique was unleashed. Behind Chu Xiu, the Vairocana Dharma idol coalesced, and the colorless fixed palm imprint was formed. In an instant, the universe was reversed. The golden Buddhist light twisted everything, and the power destroyed the murderous aura and the boundless demonic aura. With Chu Xiu and Xing Situ at the center, their stellar energy exploded. If it wasn't for the protective formation in the underground palace, their attacks would have completely destroyed the place. Chu Xiu didn't move, and neither did Xing Situ. However, he had already sheathed his two swords and covered his hands in his robes, afraid that others would see his trembling hands. There was a sudden silence. Chu Xiu's reputation had spread far and wide. He had killed a cultivator at the True Fire Spirit Refinement realm. Although he had used some tricks, a battle record was a battle record. At least he had the strength to do so. Now that they had seen Chu Xiu in action, the power he displayed was indeed worthy of Chu Xiu's reputation. Everyone knew that Chu Xiu cultivated all three paths of Taoism, Buddhism, and demonic. Right now, Chu Xiu was only using a Buddhist technique to fight evenly with Xing Situ, a demonic grandmaster who had once been ranked on the golden list. If he used his famous demonic blade, even Xing Situ might not be able to withstand it. Of course, they didn't know that even now, Xing Situ was barely holding his own. Chu Xiu said coldly, Xing Situ, put away your useless schemes. The war between the righteous and demonic factions is about to begin, and you're still trying to play your little tricks. I don't have the time to play with you. We'll wipe out the remnants of the Earth Demon Hall based on our own abilities. I can't be bothered with you, so don't provoke me. With that, Chu Xiu waved his hand. Mei Qinglian and Mr. Lu followed Chu Xiu and left. Those who had good relations with Wei Shi's faction naturally chose to follow Chu Xiu. There were also some weaker cultivators who thought about it and chose to follow Chu Xiu. At this moment, a young man in his 30s, who was dressed in a crimson robe, suddenly revealed a smile on his face as he followed behind Chu Xiu and the others. Of the 10 martial Dao grandmasters present, 4 chose to follow Chu Xiu, and the remaining 30 or so cultivators chose to leave with Chu Xiu. Xing Situ's face was ashen. Chu Xiu had only joined the Yinma clan for a short period of time. How could he gather so many people to follow him? In fact, Xing Situ thought too much. The others chose to follow Chu Xiu purely because his reputation in the Yinma clan wasn't very good. As for Chu Xiu, his reputation was only bad in the righteous Dao sects. He had never harmed anyone in the Yinma clan. Moreover, with the strength that Chu Xiu displayed just now, although his foundation and connections in the Yinma clan weren't obvious, it was enough to make some people choose to follow him. After leaving the hall, Mr. Lu looked curiously at the young man in the crimson robe. He said in surprise, "Xianxia, why did you come? I remember that the ancestor of your Scarlet Drill demonic sect seems to have a good relationship with Yuan Tianfang." Chapter 743. Xianxia, who looked young, was actually older than Mr. Lu. Xianxia was a martial arts grandmaster from the Scarlet Demonic sect. Although he wasn't famous in the hidden devil lineage, he wasn't insignificant either. It could only be said that he was very low-key. However, the Scarlet Demonic sect was a standard example of a person who didn't speak much. Usually, they didn't reveal themselves, and they might not even make a move for more than 10 years. However, once they made a move, it would definitely be a matter of family destruction. Moreover, the Scarlet Demonic sect was an elite sect. Although they didn't have many disciples, they were all elites. The old ancestor of the Scarlet Demonic sect had a good relationship with Yuan Tianfang, so in Mr. Lu's opinion, he should be following Xing Situ. Why would he follow them? Xianxia smiled and said, "The one who has a good relationship with Yuan Tianfang is my old ancestor, not me. Xing Situ is a scheming person. If I don't say anything, I'll feel depressed. If I say anything, it will definitely cause a rift between me and Xing Situ. I might as well not be with him. Moreover, I have confidence in Brother Chu. Even my old ancestor said that among the younger generation of the hidden devil lineage, Brother Chu has the most potential. Those who are valued by Senior Wei are not mediocre." Xianxia wasn't flattering Chu Xiu. The old ancestor of the Scarlet Demonic sect really said that. Wei Shia was famous in the Yinma clan not only because of his qualifications and identity, but also because of his judgment of people. Earlier, Chu Wuji and Mei Qinglian were all discovered by Wei Shia. Later, when he visited the phaseless demonic sect, he met Mr. Lu and said that Mr. Lu would become a great person in the future. Those who were valued by Wei Shia were almost all mediocre, and the same was true for Chu Xiu. Hearing Xianxia words, Mr. Lu nodded and didn't mind. The Scarlet Demonic sect was low-key and neutral in the hidden devil lineage, so it wasn't annoying. Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Since that's the case, I welcome Brother Shen. Such a small matter actually doesn't need to be calculated." Putting everything else aside, Xianxia was a person who knew the rules very well. His actual age was older than Mr. Lu, and in terms of seniority, he was also higher than Chu Xiu. But now, he called Chu Xiu Brother Chu, and directly used strength to determine seniority, which made people feel comfortable. Xianxia nodded and said, "Xing Situ is well prepared. I'm afraid he has been planning everything since yesterday. What do you plan to do, Brother Chu?" The rest of the demonic path martial artists were also staring at Chu Xiu. Since they had followed Chu Xiu here, their interests were naturally tied to Chu Xiu. Although they didn't expect to get any benefits, it was still good to have some soup to drink. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes. Plan before you act. Xing Situ did a good job. Since he has prepared the information, we naturally have to understand the current situation of the Earth Demon Hall. Xianxia slapped his head and said, "That's right, I almost forgot. Brother Chu, you are good friends with Xia Xiaolu, the disciple of the World Alliance's Qinqing Di. The World Alliance is located in West Chu, so it should be very easy for you to obtain this information." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Professional matters should be handled by professionals. Even if the World Alliance can obtain some information, it's only superficial information. Even if Xing Situ sent people to inquire about it, they only found some general information. The real details are not in West Chu, but in Eastern Qi." "Where?" "Wind Sweeping Building." At this time, in the headquarters of Wind Sweeping Building in Eastern Qi's Nanliang City, Vice Floor Master, Three-Eyed God, Qi Yuanli was leisurely basking in the sun. Beside him was a pot of hot tea and a stack of fennel beans. From time to time, he would pick up a bean and throw it into his mouth, then take a sip of tea. For Qi Yuanli, this kind of leisurely life was the most enjoyable. Although there were many people in the Wind Sweeping Tower who criticized him for being too idle, Qi Yuanli handled the matters that needed to be handled in an orderly manner. In fact, he was even more capable than the other vice building masters. At this time, the door was knocked open. Qi Yuanli frowned and said, "Didn't I say not to disturb me when I'm basking in the sun? It's not like the war between the righteous and demonic factions has started. Why are you all panicking?" At this time, Qi Yuanli suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned around and saw a disciple of the Wind Sweeping Building standing there with a bitter smile. Chu Xiu and the other martial Dao masters were all standing there looking at him. "Floor Master Qi, long time no see." Chu Xiu greeted with a smile. Qi Yuanli wiped his cold sweat and said with a forced smile, "Vice Floor Master, it's just a Vice Floor Master. Why did official Chu come to my Wind Sweeping Building?" To be honest, Qi Yuanli did not want to see Chu Xiu at this time, especially during this sensitive period. A storm was brewing in the pugilistic world. Wind Sweeping Building specialized in intelligence. How could they not know what state the righteous and demonic factions were in? It was like a barrel of gunpowder that could explode at any time. However, Wind Sweeping Building was a neutral force. They did not want to help the demonic factions, but at the same time, they did not want to offend the righteous factions. Therefore, they could only keep a low profile, afraid that the two factions would come knocking on their door. But now, not only did Chu Xiu come knocking on their door, but he also came with 3 martial Dao masters. Yin demon sect Saintess, Mei Qinglian, was quite famous in the pugilistic world. Of course, most people only knew her as Madame Mei, but they did not know that she was Saintess Mei. There was also the phaseless demon sect's new martial Dao master, Lu Jin, who addressed others as Mr. Lu. He led the phaseless demon sect on many missions, and he was already quite famous before he became a martial Dao master. Finally, Qi Yuanli thought about it and found the corresponding person. Scarlet Demon Sect's baleful Yin Demon Sword, Shen Xuaning. Although she was not famous in the pugilistic world, every time she made a move, her sword would be stained with blood, and she would die. There were probably 3 or 4 martial Dao masters who had died in her hands. She was decisive and ruthless, and she had never lost a single battle. For martial Dao masters from the hidden demon sect came looking for him together. This made Qi Yuanli feel that they did not come with good intentions, and he no longer had the mood to bask in the sun. Chu Xiu sat at the table beside Qi Yuanli, poured himself a cup of tea, and said, "Don't worry, Tower Lord Qi. We are not here to look for trouble. We came to Wind Sweeping Tower to buy information." Qi Yuanli revealed a look of embarrassment. Of course, he knew that they were here to buy information, but the problem was that it was a crucial moment in the war between the righteous and demonic sections. Would Wind Sweeping Tower dare to sell information about the righteous sects to Chu Xiu and the others? Chu Xiu saw that Qi Yuanli's expression was a little ugly, so he waved his hand and said, "Tower Lord Qi, you misunderstand. I know the rules, and I will not make things difficult for you. I am not buying information about the righteous sects, but about the traitor of the Kunlun devil cult, the Earth Demon Hall." Hearing this, Qi Yuanli immediately heaved a sigh of relief. There was no problem with people from the demonic sects buying information about people from the demonic sections. As he said this, Qi Yuanli took out a jade book and kept flipping through it. Finally, he copied it into a jade talisman and handed it to Chu Xiu. "Thank you, Tower Lord Qi. What's the price?" Qi Yuanli immediately made a gesture of invitation and said, "The remnants of the Earth Demon Hall do not have much influence in the underworld. It is not considered a big piece of information. Official Chu can just take it and leave." At this moment, Qi Yuanli did not dare to ask for money. He could not wait to send Chu Xiu, this god of plague, away. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "That won't do. I, Chu Xiu, do not have the habit of asking for things for free. Friendship is friendship, and rules are rules. These are elixirs produced by my Jianghu Hall. There is only one of them in the underworld. Tower Lord Qi, take it. If it is useful, it can be used to promote my Jianghu Hall." As he said this, Chu Xiu threw a bottle of elixirs to Qi Yuanli and left with his people. The Jianghu Hall had established a foothold in the northern Yan and received a lot of filial piety from those aristocratic families. Chu Xiu had people set up a pill shop that specialized in refining elixirs. After all, one should not let one's own fertile water flow into one's own field. After Qi Yuanli and the others left, he took a look at the name on the elixir and almost vomited blood. It turned out to be an ordinary blood recovery elixir. What was the difference between this and taking it for free? Qi Yuanli looked at the disciple of Wind's sweeping building who was still stunned at the side and threw the elixir to him. He snorted and said, "This is your reward. Hurry up and get out." Qi Yuanli shook his head unhappily. Chu Xiu's actions had ruined his mood to bask in the sun. It was really annoying. After leaving Wind's sweeping building, Shen Xuaning, who was following behind Chu Xiu, had a look of interest on his face. He finally understood the gap between Chu Xiu and Xing Situ, and even himself, a warrior from the Yinma clan. This was not a gap in strength, but a gap in the way they acted and the overall situation. Martial artists like them who came from the hidden devil bloodline, no matter what they did, would always limit themselves to the hidden devil bloodline. Especially for people like Xing Situ, who was like a wandering soldier. He might have the strength, but he would run after killing people and come back after hiding. He really did not have the overall situation to speak of. However, Chu Xiu was different. His connections were all over the underworld, and of course, his hatred was also all over the underworld. Just like this time, Xing Situ could only inquire about the news through other Devil Path rogue cultivators, but Chu Xiu had already used his connections to get detailed information from Wind's sweeping building. Shen Xuaning could see that this was definitely not the first time Qi Yuanli and Chu Xiu had met. This was only because it was Chu Xiu. If it was Xing Situ, he would probably put on a good show of breaking into Wind's sweeping building. So after so many years, the number of people from the Yinma clan who could stand upright in the underworld could be counted on one hand, and Chu Xiu was one of them. Chu Xiu glanced at the contents of the report, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. He said, "These remnants of the Earth Demon Hall are interesting. All of them have changed their identities and joined forces with the West Chu Imperial Court. They have become members of a secret organization under the West Chu Imperial Court. The methods of the Earth Demon Hall were very similar to those of Chu Xiu. They were also not accepted by the righteous path, so they chose to cooperate with the Imperial Court, which had nothing to do with the righteous and demonic path. The only difference was that Chu Xiu had many choices at the time, but the Earth Demon Hall had no choice. This was the only way they could exchange for a chance of survival. Chapter 744. In West Chu's capital Jianghu, the leader of the 3rd Spy Division, Shao Qi, returned to the hall with a tired body. On the surface, he was the leader of the Spy Division, but in reality, he was a descendant of the Earth Demon Division. Of course, this secret identity could not be seen, otherwise it would attract a group of mad dogs. In the eyes of Shao Qi and the other Earth Demon Division members, the hidden demon branch were mad dogs, pure mad dogs. The Kunlun demon sect had already been annihilated for a few hundred years. Why must they still hold on to those grudges of the past? If there were no mad dogs spying on them, why would the Earth Demon Division try to curry favor with the moon-worshipping cult and now the West Chu royal family? There was no need to talk about the moon-worshipping cult, they were on the verge of collapse. Luckily they had made preparations in advance and also had the West Chu royal family, otherwise it would be their turn to suffer. However, the West Chu royal court was not easy to get along with. In recent years, the Earth Demon Division had suffered greatly. In fact, forces like the Secret Intelligence Division existed in all three countries. Eastern Qi was the White Tiger Division. Eastern Qi was rich and powerful, directly cooperating with one of the four spirits, the fierce White Tiger Division. They didn't even need to change their name. Northern Yen had recently cooperated with Chu Xiu to establish the Suppression Martial Division. It was said that they were doing well. Only their West Chu Secret Intelligence Division was established the earliest. The Earth Demon Hall was one of the halls of the Kunlun Demon sect and their strength wasn't weak, but they were the most miserable one. The reason was because the West Chu royal family was too weak. When the royal court cooperated with the Jianghu, the royal court had to take the lead. At the very least, they had to provide a strong enough backing. In the end, the West Chu royal court was so cowardly that they didn't dare speak to the large sects in West Chu. In Sichuan, the Tang family's words were more effective than the royal court, so what could the spy division do? There was nothing they could do. Xiaoqi walked into the hall. There were other guard leaders inside. They were all at the Unity of the World realm and were responsible for patrolling the surroundings of Jianghu. Seeing Xiaoqi come in, someone asked, "Is there any movement today?" Xiaoqi shook his head and said, "Not at the moment. However, a storm is brewing. The war between the righteous and demonic factions is about to break out at any moment. It's best to be careful." Someone laughed coldly and said, "Let's fight. It's best if we can get Mo and his group of mad dogs involved. In the end, both sides will suffer." Everyone sneered. However, they knew that it was almost impossible. The people of the Yinma clan were not idiots. Of course, the less they participated in this kind of thing, the better. Xiaoqi suddenly asked, "By the way, is Chu Xiu also from the Yinma clan?" Someone said, "I think so. The Yinma clan has been keeping a low profile for a long time, but this kid is the most flamboyant. He even set up a Jianghu hall in the Northern Yen region. It's said that the Northern Yen martial artists don't dare to speak loudly." At this point, everyone present revealed a look of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Chu Xiu was very comfortable in the Northern Yen region. No one was like them. They obviously joined forces with the Western Chu royal family, but in the end, it seemed like they were helping the Western Chu royal family to clean up the mess. Xiaoqi sneered and said, "It's best if Chu Xiu is also involved in this matter. If something happens to him, I will suggest to the hall master that we go to the Northern Yen region and cooperate with the Northern Yen Emperor to enter the Jianghu hall. At that time, we won't be as sullen as we are now. Even if I give you the Jianghu hall, can you play around?" Hearing this voice, all the people of the Earth Demon Hall had goosebumps all over their bodies. They were shocked. This was the secret entrance of their spy division. In fact, it looked like an ordinary medicine shop from the outside, but there was a formation in the inner hall. But now, someone had appeared here without a sound, and the formation did not react at all. Just how strong was this person? When everyone turned around, they saw a handsome young man dressed in black, surrounded by specks of demonic qi, with a strange smile on his face. What really frightened them was the young man's gaze. He looked at them as if he was looking at a group of pigs that could be slaughtered at any time. "Who are you? Do you know where this place is?" Xiaoqi couldn't help but speak with a trembling voice. It wasn't that they didn't know the famous Chu Xiu, but that Chu Xiu was too different from them. Although they were just talking about Chu Xiu, it was just aimlessly chatting. In fact, one was in the Northern Yen region and the other was in Western Chu. They never thought that Chu Xiu would appear in front of them. They didn't have the time to go to the wind-sweeping building to buy a portrait of Chu Xiu. They weren't Chu Xiu fans. "Didn't you just say that you wanted to enter my Jianghu hall? Why don't you recognize me now?" Xiaoqi shuddered and shouted, "Run!" Chu Xiu's identity in the Jianghu hall didn't make them afraid. What really scared them was Chu Xiu's identity as a member of the Hidden Devil clan. The two sides had a death feud. There were 5 people present, and they all fled in different directions with tacit understanding. At this moment, a crimson sword, tainted with killing intent, appeared out of nowhere and easily pierced through one of the cultivators. This was Shen Xuaning. A jade-like hand lightly touched, and in the midst of the dancing demonic energy, a warrior's body twitched. Blood flowed from his orifices, but he still had a strange smile on his face. This was Mei Qinglian. On the other side, a giant demonic hand fell from the sky and instantly crushed a warrior into minced meat. It was simple and brutal. It was Mr. Lu who didn't have any skills. Seeing these 3 attack, Chu Xiu's face turned green. After getting the information from Wind's sweeping building, Chu Xiu was prepared to find a base of the Secret Intelligence Division and then slowly interrogate them about the current situation of the Earth Demon Hall. But now, these people had come and killed them. How the hell was he going to interrogate them? Don't kill them, leave them alive. Chu Xiu waved his hand, and 2 streaks of spiritual energy slapped the last 2 people to the ground, so that they wouldn't be killed by this group of people again. Shen Xuaning sheathed her sword and said with some embarrassment, "Sorry, it's a personal habit." Mei Qinglian and Mr. Lu shrugged at the same time. These traitors were too hateful. There was nothing they could do. Shao Qi and another person from the Earth Demon Hall were brought over. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and asked, "Tell me, where are the people of the Earth Demon Hall now? How is their strength? Where are the things you obtained from the Kunlun Devil cult?" The Earth Demon Hall martial artist struggled to give a cold snort, not saying a word. The grudge between the Earth Demon Hall and the Hidden Devil clan had been going on for hundreds of years. These years, they had been hiding in West Chu, but it wasn't that they hadn't gone out. Even in West Chu, as long as they were discovered by the Hidden Devil clan, both sides would fight to the death. So the martial artists of the Earth Demon Hall had always been taught by their elders to be incomparably respectful when they met people from the moon-worshipping cult and the Bright Devil clan. If they met martial artists from the righteous sects, they could admit defeat, but if they met martial artists from the Hidden Devil clan, they had to be stubborn to the end, or they would fight to the death. Seeing this scene, Chu Xiu nodded his head and said, "Oh." The next moment, he reached out and immediately broke the neck of that martial artist. That Earth Demon Hall martial artist looked at Chu Xiu in disbelief before he died. He really couldn't believe that Chu Xiu would kill him just like that. This guy didn't play by the rules. Didn't he say he would interrogate him? If he didn't say a word, he would kill him. Was it coercion or bribery? What about torture? Why did he skip so many steps? Actually, that Earth Demon Hall martial artist only had one thing on his mind before he died. He was really afraid of death and he wasn't that stubborn. Perhaps if Chu Xiu interrogated him again, he would have said it. It was a pity that Chu Xiu was too lazy to say another word. Seeing Chu Xiu look over, Shao Qi immediately shouted, I'll talk. Right now, other than the vice leader of the Earth Demon Hall in the capital who is also the head of the spy department, the other 6 people are scattered all over West Chu. They all have the strength of a martial grandmaster. As for the things we obtained from the Kunlun Devil cult, they are all with the leader and vice leader. We don't have the qualifications to touch them. After pouring out everything in one breath, Shao Qi looked at Chu Xiu with an expectant gaze. Official Chu, I've said everything, can you spare my life? After this matter, I will no longer be a member of the Earth Demon Hall and I will not take a single step in West Chu. Chu Xiu patted his head and said with a smile, relax, I've already asked everything I wanted to ask, of course I won't kill anyone. After saying this, Chu Xiu stood up and turned to leave. But before Shao Qi could let out a sigh of relief, Chu Xiu softly said, I'll leave it to you. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Xiu heard a pitiful cry. That pitiful cry was filled with deep hatred and resentment. Chu Xiu had an indifferent expression on his face. He really wasn't lying, he didn't kill him. As for whether the others killed him or not, that wasn't something Chu Xiu could control. In truth, Chu Xiu didn't have any enmity with the people of the Earth Demon Hall. They had indeed betrayed the Kunlun devil cult before, but Chu Xiu wasn't from the Kunlun devil cult, so he didn't have that much hatred for them. Their life and death didn't matter to him, but the things on their bodies, Chu Xiu really wanted them. The products of the Kunlun devil cult were all top-quality goods. This was publicly acknowledged. That Xing Situ obtained the refining methods of the two demon weapons and became a master. The Demon Heart Hall inheritance that Chu Xiu obtained was not bad either. Right now, the Earth Demon Hall not only had things left behind by their ancestors, but also things from other Kunlun devil cult halls. The value of these things could be imagined. But the strength of the Earth Demon Hall was a bit weaker than Chu Xiu had imagined. It must be known that in the past, a hall of the Kunlun devil cult was also filled with experts. The hall master of the Kunlun devil cult could completely stand shoulder to shoulder with the sect masters and patriarchs of some large sects in the outside world. For example, the Demon Heart Hall inheritance that Chu Xiu obtained, the hall master Nangong Wuming's strength, in Chu Xiu's opinion, was at least at the true fire spirit refinement realm. The Earth Demon Hall had betrayed them and obtained so many benefits, but the result was that they were getting worse and worse. Why bother? Chapter 745. When Mr. Liu and the others slaughtered the people in this secret base, they saw Chu Xiu standing with his hands behind his back. At this time, Chu Xiu really had the demeanor of a leader. He was only responsible for giving orders, and the others were responsible for killing. Of course, no one said anything. After all, Chu Xiu's strength was there, and everything was under his command. Chu Xiu had the qualifications to do so. Mr. Liu frowned and said, "This Earth Demon Hall actually has branches all over West Chu. This is a bit troublesome. It's too much of a waste of time." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Since it's a waste of time to separate them, why don't we gather them all together?" "How do we gather them?" Chu Xiu pointed to the back and said, "Leave 2 words in blood, just write, debt collection." Mr. Liu said with some doubt, "That's it? Are you sure the people from the Earth Demon Hall can understand it?" Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "It's to make them look like they understand, but not really understand. Think about it, if a branch of your phaseless demon sect was destroyed by someone, and there were even some words left behind, what would your first reaction be?" Mr. Liu suddenly understood. Of course, he would gather the rest of the disciples to discuss how to deal with this matter. Although this person died in the Secret Intelligence Division, it was clear that he came for the Earth Demon Hall. So even if the Secret Intelligence Division was responsible for monitoring the entire West Chu martial arts world, when the time came, all the high-level members of the Earth Demon Hall would gather together to discuss how to deal with it. Shen Xuaning suddenly said, "If the other party's gathering place is not in Jianghu City, then wouldn't we have waited in vain?" Chu Xiu pointed to the top and said, "There is still a Deputy Hall Master of the Earth Demon Hall in Jianghu City. He is one of the higher-ups of the Earth Demon Hall. Tomorrow's matter will definitely be discovered by him first. If the Earth Demon Hall's gathering place is not in Jianghu City, he will definitely make a move. So we just need to keep an eye on him, and that will be enough." Everyone present heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that Chu Xiu had made the appropriate arrangements. In fact, this group of people in the Yinma clan were not all simple-minded people, but most of them did not belong to a sect. They were all rogue cultivators. There were only a few people in the clan. In addition to the master, there were only a few martial brothers. They had no experience in doing things. They could kill people, but when it came to handling specific matters, they were still inferior to those disciples from large sections. The next morning, in the hall of the Secret Intelligence Division, a dignified middle-aged man dressed in black looked at the corpse on the ground, suppressing his extreme anger. He was the Deputy Hall Master of the Earth Demon Hall, as well as the head of the Jianghu City Secret Intelligence Division, Lin Baohuang. Lin Baohuang sent someone to check on the situation at the foot of Jianghu City. He did not expect to see dead bodies all over the ground. The Earth Demon Hall hadn't been doing too well in recent years. On one hand, they were the remnants of the Kunlun devil cult, and on the other hand, they were the traitors of the Kunlun devil cult. Simply put, they were like Zhu Beiji looking in the mirror, with two sides that were not human. Although the West Chu land was protected by the moon-worshipping cult, the moon-worshipping cult only promised that no one would come to find trouble with them and would not help them. So in these years, the Earth Demon Hall could only accept a limited number of disciples. Even if there were disciples, their talent was not too good. For someone like Lin Baohuang, who was a martial arts grandmaster, he already had the qualifications to establish his own sect outside, but in the West Chu land, he still had to be very low-key. Other than the matters of the Secret Intelligence Division, he basically did not care about anything else. He didn't expect that even so, something would still happen. At this time, not only were there people from the Earth Demon Hall in the hall, there was also a man wearing a tight gray warrior suit with a folding fan on his back. Although he was already middle-aged, he was still incomparably handsome. The Earth Demon Hall was also the West Chu Secret Intelligence Division. Now that something had happened to the Earth Demon Hall, West Chu naturally sent people over. This middle-aged man was one of the West Chu consecrated elders, named Meng Jing. It was said that he had a part of the West Chu royal family's bloodline. When he was in the unity of the heaven realm, he had already been promoted to an elder of the West Chu consecrated hall. Otherwise, according to the rules of the West Chu court, only a martial arts grandmaster could become an elder of the West Chu consecrated hall. Lin Baohuang suppressed his anger as he said, "Sir Meng, when you were young, you roamed the Jianghu and even served in the Guangzhong torture room. I wonder if you can see who did this from these corpses." This Meng Jing's path was very wild and he had never heard of him having a master, but he had roamed the Jianghu since he was young. He had entered many sects in the Jianghu, those that didn't require a background. He would often stay for a period of time, and when the higher-ups were about to give him an important task, he would leave. This Meng Jing had joined the Guangzhong torture room for a period of time when Chu Kuanga was in charge of the Guangzhong torture room, even becoming a patrol inspector. Only after Chu Kuanga died did he leave the Guangzhong torture room. Meng Jing looked over the corpses and finally shook his head as he said, "The person who did this was too strong, there were almost no traces left. One of them was strangled to death and the other two were killed by demonic qi, being directly killed. The last person should have been killed by an illusion or some secret spiritual technique and was directly killed in the illusion. Only the last person was killed by a sword, and the wound and aura are very similar to a person, the martial arts master of the Scarlet Drill Demon sect, Baleful Een Demon Sword, Shinshuaning. This person rarely makes a move, but none of his subordinates survive. Although he is low-key, his strength is not to be underestimated." Meng Jing had a faint smile on his face as he pointed to the words "debt collection," written in blood on the wall and said, "Sir Lin, if this matter was targeted at my West Chu, the Imperial Court would definitely take action. But now it seems that these people are targeting your Earth Demon Hall." Lin Baohuang's face was livid. Actually, even without Meng Jing saying it, he knew that the Scarlet Drill Demon sect was involved in this, so it was definitely the Hidden Devil sect. Debt collection, what debt? Of course it was the debt from their betrayal of the Kunlun devil cult. Lin Baohuang looked at Meng Jing and said coldly, "Sir Meng, what do you mean by this? Does the Imperial Court want to burn the bridge after crossing the river? All these years, my Earth Demon Hall has done so many things for the Imperial Court, but now that the Hidden Devil sect has come to our door, you want to get out of it. Such behavior is really disappointing." Meng Jing smiled bitterly, "Sir Lin, don't be agitated. I didn't say that the Imperial Court doesn't care about you. But let's not beat around the bush. Even if the Imperial Court can help you, they won't go all out for your Earth Demon Hall. You know the strength of the Imperial Court. If the Hidden Devil sect, the Phaseless Demon sect, the Scarlet Drill Demon sect, and the former Jade Face Heavenly Demon Wei Shuya make a move, the Imperial Court won't be able to help you. I can only guarantee that under the circumstances of limited ability, the Imperial Court will help you block the revenge of the Hidden Devil sect." Hearing Meng Jing say this, Lin Baohuang's face became a little better. He also knew that the West Chu Imperial Court wouldn't go all out to protect them. Both sides were just mutually beneficial. If the West Chu Imperial Court was willing to go all out against the Hidden Devil sect to protect them, then it would undoubtedly be a loss. So Lin Baohuang immediately made a decision. He would first send people to the moon-worshipping cult, then send people to various places in West Chu. He would recall all the elites and upper echelons of the Earth Demon Hall to Jianghu capital before making a decision. The West Chu Imperial Court didn't have any enmity with the Hidden Devil sect, so they wouldn't go all out for the Earth Demon Hall. But the moon-worshipping cult also had enmity with the Hidden Devil sect. They definitely wouldn't sit back and watch the Hidden Devil sect run wild in West Chu. And at this time, after a few days, Xing Situ brought people to the secret intelligence hall disguised as a medicine shop. But when he saw that the hall was empty and even the bloodstains had been cleaned up, Xing Situ turned his head and coldly snorted to a black-clothed middle-aged martial artist with a long blade on his back. "I say, Si Kuang, what the hell are you doing? Didn't you say that this is the secret intelligence hall?" This person was Xing Situ's good friend, Shadow Blade esteemed Si Kuang, but he wasn't a member of the Hidden Devil sect, but a standard demonic rogue cultivator. This person actually had some connections with Chu Xiu. The first martial arts grandmaster to die at Chu Xiu's hands, Qiao Yindong, was his sworn brother. The two of them had roamed together when they were young. Later, Si Kuang wanted to find Chu Xiu for revenge, but at that time, Chu Xiu had already left West Chu and Si Kuang didn't dare to go to the Guangzhong torture room, so the matter was dropped. Hearing Xing Situ's question, Si Kuang said with a face full of grievance, "I used a lot of my connections to find out about this place. The Secret Intelligence Hall is a secret department of the Northern Yan Imperial Court. If it was open and above board, it wouldn't be called the Secret Intelligence Hall, it would be better to call it the Open Intelligence Hall. Maybe the Secret Intelligence Hall moved for some reason and temporarily changed its name. This kind of thing is very normal for the Secret Intelligence Hall. I'll go ask around again." Xing Situ's face was full of dismay, but he could only nod in agreement. However, the others present looked at Xing Situ with a strange look in their eyes. This person didn't seem very reliable. They didn't know how Chu Xiu's team was doing. If they had the upper hand, they wouldn't even be able to drink the soup. What they didn't know was that Chu Xiu not only had the upper hand, but he had also begun to make arrangements and was ready to make his move. Chu Xiu and the others didn't know when the other people from the Earth Demon Hall would arrive, so he had the other martial artists of the Hidden Devil clan spread out in all directions of Jianghu city. He had them disguise themselves and investigate the situation. Although the strength of this group of people was not too strong, it was only comparable to Chu Xiu. In terms of individual ability, they were the cream of the crop among their peers, so this was no problem for them. Finally, after half a month, the people from the Earth Demon Hall finally gathered and prepared to enter Jianghu city. Lin Baohuang and Meng Jing were also waiting at the entrance. Meng Jing had come on behalf of the Imperial Court, wanting to see what the Earth Demon Hall had come up with. At this time, a wedding procession suddenly appeared at the city gates. The groom was young and handsome, riding a tall horse. Behind him was a sedan chair. It seemed that after receiving the bride, they were going to leave the city for the wedding. Meng Jing didn't notice at first, but in the next moment, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. You're tuning in to the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.